Chapter 61. Solution 2. The main building of the Imperial Knights, the ones who claim to be the best on the continent. After 3 days of tracking, among them was the Round Table of Myths, a gathering of their most powerful knights that tackled only the highest-ranking agendas. It is presumed that Rohakon has already escaped the continent. The atmosphere at the Round Table today was heavily subdued. It was because the operation to arrest Rohakon, which they had painstakingly devoted themselves to, had officially failed. Of course, we have requested cooperation from the local knights and the police. Hence, we can rest assured that the investigation will be carried out steadily. Lawain, Knight of the Sacred Heart, was the one reporting. 13 high-ranking knights, including Deputy Commander Isaac, listened to him at the Round Table, while the rest of the members listened to him from the surrounding seats. Write a report to Her Majesty. At that moment, Kiek, the door to the conference room swung open and a firm voice came in. I don't need a report or anything of the sort. Everyone's eyes widened. A number of knights entered from the other side of the conference room. They lined up side by side to make a path as a blazing aura flashed between them. The shadow of the intelligence agency is more accurate than your information. After all, the current emperor of the empire, Sophian Ekater von Yigas-Jifreen. Her kingly brilliance made her truly appear like the sun. Your Majesty the Emperor? The entire knights fell to their knees, regardless of rank. Their ruler frowned as if their shouts were rather too loud. Tap, tap, she walked majestically and sat down on the perimeter. I will watch your meetings in person. Rohakon is the enemy of the late emperor, so I can do this, right? Her words came as an electrifying shock to them. Lawain looked at Isaac nervously, but he motioned with his chin to continue anyway. Yes. Rohakon left no trace while escaping, but before he could, he got caught up in a magical battle with Deculine. Lawain presented the record. It was a crystal ball that contained Deculine and Rohakon's magic battle. Whoosh! When he injected magic into the crystal ball, a harsh landscape appeared. What's that? Isn't there a misunderstanding? How can this be Deculine's? The people in the room were buzzing. The land they saw had been turned upside down. All vegetation in the area had been destroyed, and the ground itself had been torn apart so much it left no steady footing. Did Deculine and Rohakon cause this? Even Sophian was surprised by what she saw. Lawain replied with his head bowed. Yes. Are you sure? Yes. The magic tower has already completed the analysis and verification. They detected blood from Deculine and Rohakon. It was useless, but Deculine's aesthetic sense also played a role in its terraforming. That made it possible for him to completely manipulate his environment, not only to enhance its beauty, but also to make it look like a battlefield. Then, the only one who gained an achievement relevant to this issue was Deculine. Isaac didn't answer quickly. If Rohakon only excelled in magic, there would have been no plausible reason for the Empire not to catch him. However, Rohakon was a person with the spirit of a wizard and the body of a knight. Rohakon was too strong even for Isaac, making it even more difficult to accept Deculine's achievements. Judging from the aftermath of their battle alone, they could easily deduce they were well-matched. Hey. If you have a mouth, speak. How will I understand your position if you don't explain yourselves after you let the enemy of the Empire escape? Sophian's tone was more of disdain than of anger. The knights bowed their heads in silence. Isaac took the initiative to reply. Deculine was defeated, so I can't really say he achieved anything. The only reason he didn't die is probably purely because of Rohakon's mercy. They had a master-disciple relationship in the past. I see you only talk to make excuses. Sophian twisted her lips. A man who killed his close friend's wife showed mercy on Deculine only because of his memories as his teacher. Rohakon only taught Deculine for 3 months. I even heard that he immediately ran away the moment he was given a half-year's worth of payment. Enough. From now on, it would be more efficient to leave Rohakon's death to Deculine than you. I don't think there's more information worth listening to here. The Emperor stood up and left without looking back. The knights of the Imperial Palace followed her. The Round Table, hit by a storm of typhoons, became a desolate wasteland. Isaac fell silently in thought, and Llewellyn recalled de Killine's arrogant voice. "You'll all just be a burden. I'm telling you to piss off nicely." At first, I thought he ran away out of sheer fear of Rohacken. Llewellyn frowned, causing Isaac to look at him. But, often, when you think you know someone, it turns out you don't. The great man named de Killine was also famous among the Knights Templar. When Julie was still a member of it, it was de Killine who tormented its innocent newcomers. It may have been that de Killine was hiding his skills, or maybe he's always been like that, but we underestimated him. However, Isaac clenched his fists. A more certain fact is that we weren't strong enough. Today, he promised again, Rohacken. Someday he would definitely hunt that dark beast down. Anyway, this report seems to need revision. At that moment, a shrill voice rang out. It was the Empire's Genius Knight Rose. A document fell gently on the round table, titled Personnel File de Killine. Isaac laughed when he saw a specific passage. Combat Power Expectations. Level 5 if this guy is level 5. Even Adrian said that de Killine was a tier below her. Of course, at the time, he dismissed it as bullshit, but now he could agree with her. Damn intelligence bastards. The Imperial Intelligence Agency was the one that distributed documents like this. But this happened sometimes. They senselessly triggered the Imperial Knights' competitive spirit and provided clearly wrong information with the intent to screw with them. Isaac immediately picked up his pen and corrected it. Combat Power Expectations. Level 1 considering the likes of Adrian, Rohacken, Zeit, and Demacken were ranked 0 in terms of combat power since they were impossible to measure. De Killine should be at least this level. Send this report to the intelligence agency directly. Those dirty bastards have been playing their shallow tricks too often lately. There were no clouds in the Isle of Wizards' Wealth sky, a floating island, and the weather was often clear due to how close it was to the sun. Thanks to that, open-air views became beautiful and colorful, but the people passing by weren't as colorful or diverse. They were all just wizards in robes. Are you talking about the symposium problem number 6? Yes. I arrived at the Atomic Wizard headquarters near Medjisen. Monarch rank de Killine, I checked your thesis. I submitted my thesis with confidence, but the response from the person in charge was lukewarm, probably because dozens of fanatics challenged the problem every day. Since you're ranked, Monarch, the inspection should be quick. That was it. The manager just kept typing without saying anything, and I went out right away. I wasn't expecting a reaction like, "Who?" Question 6, anyway. As I was about to return to the mansion, I noticed a familiar figure in one of the magic stores here. I went in and put my hand on her small head. What the fuck? For a moment, Uriel's body shook like a tornado, then looked back as if she was about to punch me. Her reaction surprised even me. What kind of pervert? She looked up at me and abruptly stopped talking. Soon, Uriel's face distorted as I shook my head. You have such a beautiful vocabulary. What? You suddenly touched my hair. Don't touch my hair, please. Uriel fixed her messy hair with both hands. I smiled and asked, "What are you doing here?" "I'm a wizard too." "If I want to come here, I can." Uriel muttered and glanced at me. I checked the item she had just seen. It was an advanced magic book. "Why don't you buy it?" "I can't buy it." "Why?" "Because of my rank. There were purchase restrictions on the Isle of Wizards' Wealth." Uriel, a solder-ranked wizard that didn't even graduate from the tower, couldn't buy an item as advanced as the book she was holding. Right. I bought the magic book myself, which was quite expensive at 50,000 elnies, but I just gave it to Uriel. Take it. Really? Yes. Can I learn magic? Uriel asked for affirmation. I thought I knew why. The former de Killine was probably afraid that Uriel might overtake him, which made him prevent her from studying it. Yes. You should learn how to protect yourself now. I wasn't as narrow-minded as he was, and, above all, de Killine had a lot of enemies. They might take her hostage. Oh, okay. Well, my self-defense skill level is also. Oh, right. Uriel, I have something for you. I handed Uriel a thick bundle of documents. It was the edited thesis. This is the thesis gift I promised you the other day. Huh, Otilda that? A wizard who resembled Alan Panyon. What is that wizard doing these days? He must be dejected. Uriel shrugged. Dejected? You took his thesis, so he's near giving up. What do you mean? Weren't you trying to steal his thesis? I didn't hear anything about it since. I frowned. I just corrected some things. Give it back after you're done with it. Huh, really? Yes. Uriel looked at me with surprise, almost as if thinking if she should believe me or not. Nevertheless, she nodded and put it in her bag. Where are you going now? I'm going to the tower to prepare the class. Prepare the class? Yes. The Ashes Baron would soon arrive. I planned to hold as many practical classes as possible to ensure the students would be able to defend against him. Luina was aware of her plight of being abandoned in an instant. In the past, the tenured professors of the Imperial University Tower treated her nicely, saying that she was D'Quilline's rival. But now she was here with her head down. They ignored her as if nothing had happened. She could understand that. D'Quilline defeated her. However, this is too much. She was assigned to an office on the 23rd floor. It wasn't too far from the ground floor, and she could still run into regular wizards in the elevator. It was a room more suitable for a newcomer who had just been hired as a full-time professor. Sigh, she knew, though. This wasn't the only humiliation D'Quilline prepared. However, no matter what he did or what shame awaited her, he wouldn't be able to break her any further. She was ready to overcome it all. 5 years wasn't that long of a time. Above all, in the contract, there was a clause stipulating that if D'Quilline became the chairman, he would do his best to make Luina the head professor. There's no toilet in the office. Luina laughed. There was no toilet in the office. There was no toilet in the office. She went outside to wash her face. Oh! She ran into a professor. It was Sire. Unlike her, who rebelled against D'Quilline until the end, Sire sucked up to D'Quilline in the beginning but later tried to stick to her like a bat when she rose to prominence. Professor Luina, your office is on the 23rd floor. She already started saying things that got to her nerves. Yes, this kind of experience is also very important. It's fun. Luina smiled brightly. Sire nodded, looking like she was holding her laughter back. Yes, Tilda then. Good luck, Tilda. Enjoy your experience. Climbing up from the bottom will be fun, as you said. As she left, Luina heard a chuckle. As soon as she entered the bathroom, she washed her face with cold water. So annoying. It feels like it was just yesterday when she came to me asking for help. Sighing, she wiped her face and returned to her office, where her narrow desk, too small to put even just 3 magic books on, awaited her. However, before she could start working, knock. Knock. The door opened without her permission. Professor Luina, a parcel has arrived for you. She didn't even tell him to leave it, but he put it on her desk and left anyway. Such inhospitality was unimaginable in the kingdom. Luina forcefully suppressed the tears that were about to burst out. Get used to it. Get used to it. She opened the package with the words question 6 answer written on it. Oh, Tilda, is this from D'Quilline? Luina laughed. Question 6 of the symposium. Runic magic in ancient inscriptions. She was almost worried about why he took the challenge. First, to solve problem 6, the interpretation of its runes needed to be proceeded. Although nothing is known about them, I inferred their meanings and formed combinations using my own interpretation system. The first page was filled with an introduction. Among the runes of the inscription, there were only 3 that could serve as a circuit. As a result of combining the runes based on it, the following formula could be implemented. From then on, its formula started. It was like an alien script that couldn't be described with letters or by type. Luina put on her glasses and read the answer sheet. The judge's job was to find out what was wrong. It was quite enjoyable, so a smile was already on Luina's lips. Let's see. At first, it was for fun and curiosity, but 1 line, 2 lines, 3, 4. As she read through it slowly, her expression hardened. Interpretation of runes, change of thinking, formula description, connection of logic, composition of the answer. D'Quilline's solution seemingly collected and intertwined scattered pieces through a process that was as orderly and clear as his personality. It was abnormally organized. It had no theoretical loopholes at all. D'Quilline started inductive reasoning based on the idea that only 3 runes functioned as a circuit, but in the end, he came to the perfect conclusion for it deductively. He even showed precision in verifying his answer in the form of a magic circle. This. Luina felt a headache pierce her temple. Before examining the contents of the answer, certain nausea arose. I am not the D'Quilline you once knew. D'Quilline's abominable voice came to mind. It couldn't be. This couldn't be his answer. There was no way he did this himself. He couldn't have written this thesis. Wait. Luina took a deep breath and ruffled her hair. Something hot was boiling inside her. She felt dizzy. The world around her seemed to spin. D'Quilline, this idea was not yours. This was not D'Quilline's achievement. If so, whose achievement was it? Who the hell gave this achievement to D'Quilline? It was a lie that would be revealed in the place of proof anyway. So why? At that question, D'Quilline's voice came to her mind again, as if telling her that this was the answer. I am not the D'Quilline you once knew. Shut up. Luina grabbed the answer sheet tightly. When it came to theoretical matters, D'Quilline had never surpassed her. Even with his help, he was still far behind her. This doesn't make sense. How can you think of this? How? The fire within her raged even stronger. It was the first time she had ever felt this way, and she never thought she would feel it because of D'Quilline. This is a lie that will be revealed sooner or later anyway, but why the hell? Denying her feelings of inferiority and jealousy, Luina only thought about D'Quilline's intentions. She thought about the place of proof because this wasn't his answer. She thought of a way to verify him thoroughly. Wait for it. This time it won't go your way. Luina's day has reached its worst. Chapter 62. 23rd floor of the Magic Tower, Professor Luina's office. The night was already deep, but she was still writing the verification plan for D'Quilline's thesis. Crack, her fountain pen broke. Drip, drip. Only then did she notice the blood dripping from her nose to the document. Luina stared blankly at the stains each drop left. Nausea enveloped her, and her heart pounded as if it was hammering against her chest. At the bottom of her consciousness, a bizarre feeling soared, causing her to look out the window involuntarily, where she found the moon swallowed up by gray clouds outside. The world had been engulfed in darkness, much like the strange woman reflected in the glass pane. Her eyes were dyed red. Did the drops of blood come in the form of tears? She thought for certain it was a nosebleed. Whoosh. As she pondered about it, unidentified particles rose from her shoulder, creating a smoky atmosphere where ashes seemed to be scattering. Luina hurriedly looked over at her shoulder, but she found nothing out of the ordinary. Her surroundings were completely normal. Am I going crazy? Luina sighed. Well, she had been through a lot lately. D'Quilline kidnapped her and wasn't fed anything for almost a week as his captive. She was on the verge of starving to death when she finally agreed to take a humiliating oath. It was quite a miracle, her mind still being intact. I should go home and rest. Tap, tap. Luina organized the pile of documents she had created and put them in her bag. She then turned off the lights, closed the door to her office, and left the tower. Wriggle amid the darkness, an unknown pulse continued. Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eferen and her group were working on the group project in the tower's study room. However, since it was already in its final stages, they decided to slow down their pace a little. One card. Damn, you're fucking mean. Eurozen, Dane, and Zappel. The three guys played a card game. Sylvia closed her eyes, still preoccupied with the project, and Eferen read a letter. To Eferen Luna. I got your letter. I believe in your talent, and I hope that you will as well. Always remember to walk not on the self-righteous path, but the strong and unwavering one. If you put all your heart into it and spare no effort, good results will surely await you. It's 5 lines. Although it was short compared to the 10-page letter she sent, she still appreciated his reply. No matter how much she thought about it, she shouldn't have written her promise to become the best wizard, just like how Rohawk was the best meat. Eferen was still satisfied, though, and kept the letter. Huh. Only a few seconds passed when she screamed and pulled out a handkerchief from her robe's inner pocket, suddenly coming to a realization. It was the fine handkerchief that a gentleman gave her while she was wailing at the last university festival due to a play called Portrait of a Sad Day. Wait a minute. The pattern embroidered on the handkerchief and the pattern engraved in the corner of the letter, they are similar. Eferen's pupils reflected the logo. It didn't seem to be a family insignia, but it did look like a high-end brand. Either way, she thought it definitely wasn't a coincidence. Ah, wait a minute. Ephraim grabbed her head and thought. She couldn't even remember what that person looked like. She was crying so hard she couldn't dare look him in the eye. No way. Was he really watching? Is he literally watching my talents? HMMMM, if so? She felt excitement boiling within her after so long, finding this situation fun. Ephraim felt a shiver run up her spine as she gently stroked her chin. At that moment, a sharp voice pierced through her wonderment. Be quiet, stupid Ephraim. Sylvia was staring at her with fierce eyes. Her concentration had been broken. I'm sorry, Tilda. Ephraim apologized brightly and shut her mouth, and Sylvia closed her eyes to try and focus on the project again. But her ears and eyelids kept pricking up as if she was listening and looking at two different subjects. The corner of her mouth kept twisting upward as well. Oh, right. Did you hear the rumors about Rohacken? The male members of their group suddenly changed the subject. Ephraim corrected her posture out of guilt. She didn't just hear about him, she was right there with him. Rohacken, even my dad won't tell me anything about the issue. All I heard is that it's confidential. I heard there are rumors that he fought with Professor Dekulin. Really? Still, his opponent was Rohacken. There's probably a huge level difference between him and the head professor. Fortunately, they seem to know nothing. Our class will start soon. We should get going. Ephraim, Sylvia, you coming? The trio turned around. Just then, Sylvia opened her eyes again. I am. They stored their scrolls in the study room safe, then went out and rode the elevator together. Sylvia whispered, You know what happened that day is a secret, right? Why are you asking something so obvious? Do you really think I'm stupid? Yeah. Ding. They arrived on the 3rd floor, but Ephraim got out of the elevator a little later because the noble wizards waiting near the hallway rushed to Sylvia. What is she, an idol? Sylvia, I heard. They said you broke through Rohacken's barrier this time. You're awesome, Tilda, teach us later. What? Broke through his barrier? All she did was eat my fish skewers. Grunting, Ephraim opened the door and entered the classroom. I think we're doing something today, too. As soon as she entered, she found an unusual view. Looking around, she realized she was on a university campus. All campus buildings, such as cafes, gymnasiums, classrooms, gardens, alleys, shops, restaurants, were implemented, the only exception being the magic tower. Wow, huh? Looking back without much thought, Ephraim was surprised. The door she came in had disappeared. An empty garden took its place. An eerie feeling ran across her nape. Are we having a ghost-themed class today? What does this have to do with pure elements, though? Ghosts are actually pure elements, he would say. Can you hear me? Assistant Professor Allen's voice came from the sky. It's already 3 o'clock, so let's start the class. If there is a debutante who couldn't enter, then they're already disqualified for being late. If they were even 1 second late, they were removed from today's class. Dekulin clearly set that rule. Ephraim's ears pricked. Today's class is a practicum to test out your skills. Think of this place as a virtual barrier, and you are currently locked in it. Your goal is to escape within 180 minutes. It was quite an interesting class. Be advised that there are monsters created by the barrier scattered all over its interior. Additionally, Head Professor Dekulin won't serve as your ally and protector. Today, he will be roaming the area trying to eliminate you. Dekulin? Hearing this, Ephraim felt rather thrilled. She had yet another opportunity to legally challenge Dekulin. Since Professor Dekulin and other professors are monitoring this class, you will never be in real danger. However, please keep in mind that the moment you're found in any situation that would normally be considered deadly outside the educational setting, you will be deemed eliminated. Your performance in this activity will be reflected in your grades. Awoo-oh. His explanation wasn't even over yet, but a howl had already echoed its way to where she was. Ephraim looked around, finding a wild, red-eyed dog. Ashes drooled out of its mouth. I look forward to witnessing your practical use of magic. Now let the class begin. As soon as the assistant professor finished his monologue, Ephraim imbued her bracelet with her mana. GRRR. Not long after, she fired magic, a combination of wind and water elements, against the rabid beast making its way to her. Splash! The water she ejected was condensed into an extremely high-pressured crescent-shaped projectile, bolting through space at a speed of over 500 ms/s. Although it had a short range, its melee and cutting power was comparable to any sword because of the destruction series used with its pure elemental magic. This was the water moon that Deucalion taught her. See, RRRR. The wild dog's body was divided into quarters. Hoo-hoo. Ephraim shrugged. Ah. As she did, however, she heard a scream echoing from not far away. Where are you? Ephraim ran towards the source right away. She applied the wind element to her body, allowing her to move at quick speeds while creating minimal noise. She arrived swiftly, but it seemed she was too late. Instead of a person, she found a note. Selly has been eliminated. I'm sorry. I wish I had reached you sooner. It was a shame. Clicking her tongue, Ephraim put the note in her pocket and moved. 40 minutes had passed. Despite the threats scattered around her, Sylvia walked proudly. She didn't even try to hide or be silent. Instead, she only revealed her dignity without hesitation. Those retaken by her graceful light bared their teeth and brandished their claws, but the consequences of daring to challenge the sun herself were horrendous. All of them were scorched by the heat of her magic, oxidizing them as they desperately struggled to survive. Sylvia. Soon after, she heard someone call out her name. Following its source, she found Lucia, Jupern, and Beck, a group of aristocrats that seemed to be glued together. Lucia asked, "Do you want to escape the barrier with us?" Sylvia shook her head. "Yeah, well, be strong then." As if Lucia just asked her out of formality, they swiftly passed by after she answered. No, they passed by, then soon started running away in the opposite direction. Sylvia soon found out why. On the horizon stood a nobleman who radiated a powerful and crushing aura. Head Professor Deucalion. Now that he had become an enemy, he became a more fearsome opponent than anyone she could think of. Suppressed by his domineering presence, Sylvia immediately closed her eyes, rumbling. For a moment, she turned the very ground she stood on into water and submerged herself in it, holding her breath in that state. The sound of footsteps echoed above her head. Ah! Shortly after that, she heard a scream. He had probably caught Lucia's gang. Those guys were idiotic for thinking the professor's steel could be avoided by running. She didn't know the details of its mechanism, but once under its radar, they could no longer escape its pursuit unless they went underground, which was exactly what she did. Sylvia burrowed, waiting quietly. Soon enough, she heard another voice. It was familiar and silly at the same time. No, it was very stupid. "Stop, Ephraim. A head-on confrontation is foolish." "This is not a head-on confrontation. We have the advantage in numbers, huh? Where are you going? Come back." From what she heard, the people Ephraim rescued seemed to have run away. Not long after, a sharp noise rang out, sounding like sparks hitting metal. Ephraim seemingly tried to manifest magic, but... wait, She didn't call her stupid for no reason. Sylvia suppressed her laughter as she listened to Ephraim's scream, surprisingly managing to endure through it. 120 minutes had passed. Still, I have no regrets. Ephraim, barely managing to escape, sighed as she rubbed her throbbing body. Lucia and the others ran away after she saved them, which she found ridiculous. She thought they could have taken him on since there were 4 on their side and only 1 in his. Be patient. Be patient. Ephraim suppressed her anger as she explored and analyzed the barrier. Her method of escaping was to break it. The types of beasts in here are golems, wild dogs, bats. She looked up at the sky, finding a swarm of bats roaming the air. Her gaze narrowed at them. Their orbit takes a certain path. She released mana through the air, attaching it to a bat. It fluttered along with its vessel, conveying useful information to Ephraim. Its job was most likely to search for enemies and transmit their location to Deucalion, but they were circling erratically. However, since every orbit had a center, she could predict their movements based on the trajectory of their rotation. Ephraim closed her eyes and recalled the scenery around her. She then looked up, calculating the bat swarm's collective wingspan. The result was creak. Ah, who's there? Ephraim panicked. A silhouette came out of the corner. Ephraim, so you're not dead, Sylvia, she sighed and placed her hand on her chest. Sigh, even if we get eliminated, we won't get killed. Anyway, you came at the right time. Sit. She pointed to the floor next to where she was sitting. Sylvia, however, made a chair that was about 1 m high through magic instead. Sitting on it, she looked down at Ephraim. Aren't you coming down from there? Just say it. Will you grow up already? Say it. Sigh. Anyway, I think we have to break this barrier to escape, but to do, Jim. Sylvia interrupted Ephraim, who nodded anyway. So you figured that out already too. I think the core of the barrier is in there. Ephraim pointed to the gym that appeared across the alley. Keeping their silence, they communicated through body language, agreeing to walk to the gym together. Moving carefully so as not to be seen by wild dogs and bats, they reached their destination safely and clung to its wall. Ephraim peeked into a window first, immediately finding the final boss in the middle of the building. SHH. It's Dekiline. Dekiline was with dozens and hundreds of beasts. Upon keener inspection, it looked like he was reading a book. Sylvia narrowed her eyes. Arrogant Ephraim. Come on, he's our enemy right now. Ephraim looked inside again. Its interior was quite spacious, being an open field. The core of the barrier was floating in the middle of the air, positioned in such a place that would allow their professor to easily protect it. They were conducting a practical rehearsal that Alan put great effort into, according to Dekiline's design. There was no way it would be easy. I think one of us needs to get his attention. I'll do it. No, Sylvia shook her head. I'll do it. Will you be okay? Ephraim's eyes widened. She thought, of course, that she was only trying to gain a high grade for herself. You can't draw his attention since you're stupid. Gosh. Okay, what are you going to do? How will you get his attention in that gym? Look, its 4 sides are open. He knows that too, so he put the core there. You and I are different. Sylvia pulled out her brush and drew a square and a handle on the ground. It soon materialized as a noble substance. Go down in there. I connected it to the gym. What if it's blocked along the way? Are you doubting me? Sylvia's eyebrows twitched. No, it's not that. Ephraim opened the lid, revealing what looked like an underground bunker. This is amazing, I admit. In admiration, she stretched out her palm for a high five. However, Sylvia only looked at her hand. Arrogant Ephraim. What? You don't know what this is. Don't overreact. Just go in, figure out when to come out yourself. Okay. Ephraim entered the aisle and Sylvia opened the gym door. As expected, Dekiline stood on the other side of it. The ashen beasts showed hostility toward her. Are you done discussing things over? Dekiline asked, still reading. Sylvia nodded. I see. Tap, he closed his book. As if taking it as a signal, his minions in the gym charged at her. Sylvia closed her eyes and released the 3 primary colors. Whoosh originating from her power supply, they dyed the world around her, transforming the ordinary gym interior as she drew over it. Red, green, blue. Those 3 lines of paint blended to form all other colors, slowly engulfing the battlefield with them. There were no monsters in her newly drawn landscape. They were all decimated without even being able to resist her painting. Hence, the ashes faded as the building turned into a fresh grassy field. It was the fruit of the inspiration she got from Dekiline, the magic that embodied her talent, and the emotion she felt during the midterm exams. I can do whatever I want in this world. Dekiline scanned the area, his eyes looking for a certain intermediary. I didn't use a mana stone to help me with this. I did it all on my own. Sylvia placed her hand on her chest as she stared at him, standing bravely before him. I'm Sylvia. You know who I am. Her voice seemed filled with confidence, showing unbridled trust with her faith and pride in herself. Such were the traits someone as powerful and noble as her should display. Dekiline seemed satisfied. Good. Magically, this is perfect. However, the moment Sylvia closed her eyes and opened them, Dekiline had already reached her. However, you shouldn't leave your body vulnerable. The Baron of the Ashes amplified his own physical and magical skills through parasites, which made the players struggle not only against his magic, but also against his physical prowess. Player wizards would just up their stats, but NPC wizards, unlike players, needed to train their bodies. You're eliminated. Dekiline reached out his finger and tapped Sylvia's forehead. She looked up at him without blinking. No, she proudly responded as she shook her head. Before that, I got it. He heard a shout from far behind him. his reaction to which seemed to say he already knew who it was without even looking back. Eferen. "We've seized the core of the barrier?" She raised her hand, holding the barrier's core as if asking him to look in her direction. The bracelet on her right wrist then trembled as she imbued her mana into it. Phew! Ordinary debutantes wouldn't be able to destroy the core she held and dismantle the barrier. But Eferen was no ordinary debutante. Wuwang. When her mana swirled from her bracelet and permeated around the core, the entire barrier began to shake. Rumble. The ground vibrated as well, almost as if they were experiencing an earthquake, causing dust and cement powder to fall from the gym's ceiling. A crack appeared in the sky, and not long after, space itself split apart. Clank. Ts Suzu Susu. The barrier shattered like a glass dome, its fragments scattering indefinitely under its rain, basking in its fragments. Ha ha ha. D'Quilin laughed, seemingly proud of them. They felt as if he was telling them that they had become incredibly reliable individuals. Sylvia and Eferen stared blankly at their professor. That was the first time they had ever seen him smile. "Okay." After a while, he declared, "You won." Eferen felt a rapture rising from deep within her. In her head, fireworks resounded loudly as an unbearable ecstasy surged. "Eferen, Sylvia, you two got perfect scores." Their surroundings returned to their original state, revealing their usual classroom. Your cooperative attitude was perfect. Not long after, the door to the classroom opened, and those eliminated earlier on came inside as instructed by Alan. Eferen found Lucia among them. She tried to help them, but that coward just ran away. Hump. Lucia, in return, just glared back at her with a venomous gaze as if saying, "So what? Sit down." D'Quilin still seemed to have something left to say. Eferen looked at the clock. It was already past 6 o'clock. He was acting strange. "Never forget the barrier that enveloped the dormitory during the recent incident. This class was conducted to prepare you all in case something like it happens again. Of course, it's still a class. Someday, you'll experience this situation in a real setting." D'Quilin glanced at Alan, who then brought a box full of gas masks. "If this happens again, always keep in mind that the key to your survival is your cooperation with others. Moreover, make sure you always carry this magic gas mask with you at all times." D'Quilin distributed the items through psychokinesis. Eferen smiled as she looked at it, only to be surprised so much it caused her eyes to widen unknowingly. She thought it was just one of the common gas masks, but it was top-notch. "Isn't this very expensive? Great work, everyone. For those who were eliminated today, reflect on what happened, what you did wrong. Assistant Professor Allen will provide you with more detailed insights about it if you so wish. All you'd need to do is ask him. This concludes our class for today." With those words, D'Quilin left the classroom. The debutantes who got eliminated early in the activity immediately left as well, mumbling to themselves. Eferen, however, remained in the classroom and enjoyed her afterglow brought by their victory. Is this how wizards grow? Her happiness reached a completely different league. "You won." D'Quilin sounded satisfied. When she heard it, huge adrenaline rushed through her head. Of course, Professor D'Quilin most likely let some things slide, considering he didn't even command the wood steel he so cherished. Regardless, she knew it would be difficult to feel the emotion that roped around her heart again. Hoo-hoo. Eferen reorganized her thoughts. She wasn't happy because he praised her. She was happy because she defeated him. Great. Eferen clenched her fists. Using her victory as justification, she decided to have a nice meal today. "My dinner for tonight will be rohawk." ***, everyone had already left, and it was already dark outside, but D'Quilin remained behind, writing on Class A's blackboard. 4 things to keep in mind. 1. Break through the core of the barrier. 2. Avoid charging head-on and focus on cooperating with each other. 3. Survive. 4. Never forget that this board serves as the only link between you guys and me. Afterward, D'Quilin cast Midas's hand on it. Magic rose from his fingers and covered its surface. In preparation for when the Baron of the Ashes would appear without warning, he left his students a few more pieces of advice. Chapter 63. Practical Experience 1. These days, interesting news had been going around the island of Wizard's Wealth, creating a fresh atmosphere that swirled all over the dull island. Da'Killeen, that Da'Killeen. Yes. The Emperor's younger brother, Credo, smiled in astonishment as soon as he got the report. So you say Problem 6 will be solved soon. The place of proof is ready. The symposium's place of proof wasn't held unless an answer was found persuasive or close to being correct. Therefore, the fact that it had been prepared meant they were getting nearer the solution. It was Problem 6, no less. That's impressive. Credo purely admired him. Of course, his solution itself still wasn't determined as the right answer, but as a fan of Da'Killeen, he had faith. Well, it's now time for him to fly. He still couldn't forget Da'Killeen's midterm exam. The feeling it instilled in him continued to remain in his heart to this day, reigniting a passion he had almost lost. Hence, when he heard the Imperial University Tower's head professor would teach Sophian, he felt envy roar within him so loud that he almost said, "I want to join the class too." There are rumors about the Ashes. Ashes? Yes, they say they are watching him from there. There, let alone a normal wizard, even his escort, Fassbender, wouldn't even speak of the volcanic zone. Ashes was such a vulgar title. It's normal for them to provoke famous wizards, but it doesn't matter. In today's world, Da'Killeen's strength is famous. He was a powerful, practical wizard. Even though the Imperial Knights kept it secret, Credo knew of Da'Killeen's well-matched battle against Rohakon. Anyway, when the place of proof is ready, I'll ask for a seat. No, this is an order. Be sure to get one. The competition for tickets would be keen. All high-ranking wizards would be found there after all. Yes, there will be no problems. Fassbender faithfully responded to Credo's request. At the same time, at the Medjisen. That's interesting. He really submitted it. Adrian read a letter from Wizard Academic in her private residence. It said, Da'Killeen's thesis is very reasonable, and it is highly probable that it is the right answer, so please check it out. I heard he's answering question number 6. Yeah, it's really question number 6. The chairman was talking to a wizard with long, black, ponytailed hair. Unlike her youthful and mischievous appearance, she was secretly a parasitic houseguest with a stern and mature look. Are you aware that Da'Killeen is in danger because of you? Huh? Why? She was a progressive person. At the very least, she didn't discriminate against people based on their origin or current affiliation. Adrian's standard was only whether it was harmful to her or not. There are a lot of people looking for Da'Killeen. Jarek, that crazy guy, Glipper Helgun, his name has gone a long way even among the Ashes. Split personality Jarek, killer Glipper, living corpse Helgun, they were all famous among the Ashes. It's all because you said Da'Killeen's strong. Huh. How is this my fault? You lost to Da'Killeen too, Cynthia? Her real name was Cynthia, but she currently went by Arloes. About 10 years ago, at the age of only 14, Adrian noticed and turned her into her unofficial disciple. A month ago, she became the criminal who installed a barrier in the 3rd building of the dormitory. I was using a dummy back then. If it were my real body, I would have won. You're lying. If it were your real body, you would have died there, Tilda. I had no intention of killing any wizard at the time. 10 years ago, although not at the level of an archmage, Cynthia was a talent that was likely to aim for the pinnacle of a particular profession. Seeing through her qualities, despite her being an orphan, Adrian directly educated her. What about it? I just wanted you to know that Da'Killeen has a bounty from the Ashes on his head. All right, more importantly, where's my doll? Arloes took a puppy out of her bag. Wow, it's so cute. It's going to live a long life, right? Yes. That's the reason why I purposely made its body small. Through magic, it's guaranteed to live long. It'll probably still be alive even if you die at over 100 years old. Why are you so obsessed with its life expectancy? Well, Tilda, Adrian just smiled faintly. It's better if it lives longer. Fairies live too long to love somebody. Her kind's lifespan was 2 or even 3 times longer than the longest-lived humans, and they never grew old. Hence, Adrian liked dolls since they could live for a long time. It was no coincidence that she discovered Arloes' talent and taught her directly. Arloes, unaware of this fact, sometimes couldn't understand her actions. Adrian was playful, mischievous, and mean, but she respected her because she was her teacher. Even to me, that thesis? Arlo slowly stretched out her arm. No, it has iris recognition. The chairman glared at her and wrapped her arms around the document. Grumbling, she retracted her hand. He solved number 6. She suddenly remembered the first time she met Deculine. You are garbage, scums that have been rejected by society. You lack the composition to be a human, and you lack the appeal to be a beast. Your only talent is to squirm. That won't help you be relieved of your poor and dirty roots. Through an aggressive tone, his curses and swear words poured out in rage. Of course, she knew why he hated the Ashes. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. If they met again someday, she promised herself she would pay him back. Oh, it's moving. The chairman trembled. Arlo's glanced at it too. The small dog, who had received Adrian's pure magic as its life force, was crying and chasing her. PFF Arlo's giggled and left the mansion. Monday, Eucline Mansion. I installed a blackboard in the annex building, which looked exactly like the one at the Imperial University Tower's classroom. Twin blackboard. Description: a blackboard made of magic stones. One of 2 paired boards. Due to Mita's hand, its resonance has increased. Category: mechanism communication. Special effects: anything written on this board is transmitted to the other blackboard it's connected to. Its connection with the other blackboard can't be broken by any magical means. Mita's hand level. For this item, upgraded by my Mita's hand, enabled 2-way communication that could go in and out of a barrier. If I were to write something on it, the same thing would be engraved on the classroom's blackboard. It gave me the ability to communicate with the debutantes. Rank 5 intermediate boss event. Baron of the Ashes. Everyone was preparing for it. Of course, we didn't know when the Baron of the Ashes would appear. Moreover, the professors couldn't intervene in the event either. Hence, there was no longer any room for me to get involved. With a little help, they should be able to take care of it. Fortunately, 2 of the debutantes were definitely smart. Unlike me, who couldn't even do anything without the help of the system's attributes, Efren and Sylvia were different. They were 2 of the named characters with the greatest growth potential of all time. Knock, knock. I opened the door and Ren came in with his head bowed. He then handed me a couple of documents. Master, rumor has it that Count Zeit is trying to take over the Freyham Knights. I also recorded a lot of additional information. Zeit? Yes, I heard he's already reserved the ceremony hall. That was quite a troublesome report. I read the documents first. It was detailed beyond imagination. Although its scope was still insufficient because I only had Ren and Enon working on it, the accuracy of intel related to people around me was satisfactory enough. Good job. With the quality of their work, I no longer felt like I wasted money on them. I then held out the Eucline, Understanding Elemental Magic book that I was currently revising to him. This is... He looked confused. I occasionally hear the sound of magic from your residence these days. It must be your sister's doing. Ren seemed completely unaware of it. Enon was most likely studying magic secretly like Uriel. I apologize. I will educate her well. This book will do that for you. I'll benefit if my subordinates have and can hone their talents anyway. Tell her to learn. Ren looked at me in surprise, which bothered me. He just had to do what I told him to do. Why did he have to look thankful, surprised, etc.? Just take this. Okay, prepare to go out. As you wish. I went out with him and soon found a familiar face waiting for me in the parking lot. Luina, boss, I was waiting for you. Shall I kick her out? Ren said. I shook my head. You don't have to. Got it. Ren walked silently and opened the back seat's door. I got on first and she quickly occupied the seat next to me. She looked tired. What's going on? Are you going to the Imperial Palace for Her Majesty's lesson? Yes. Wasn't her class with you scheduled tomorrow? I know. I just have some information to tell you. She pulled a wad of paper out of her briefcase. I was actually trying to ask all of this in the place of proof. I have already delivered it to the symposium judges. But, if I do that, it could be considered a breach of contract. Since you've given me a second chance, I want to give you a chance to give up even now. Her words sounded like a cute threat. In reply, I calmly asked, a chance to give up. Take this and read it, boss. She politely handed out the papers. I took it without a word. It was an analysis of my answer to the 6th question. I read it carefully for 3 minutes. Luina? Yes, she hid a smile as I looked at her. These are good questions. Ask these questions in the place of proof. What? Her eyes widened, and she soon frowned in frustration. No, boss, think about, Luina. What? I coughed. She didn't believe my words, so I decided to make it probable to a certain extent to convince her. Listen carefully. This rune interpretation isn't based on luck. I'll tell you more clearly. I am not the Dekuline I used to be. This idea is the result of my own realization. The ability to speak this language is proof of that. Luina looked like she didn't even understand a bit of what I just said. No, she looked like she couldn't understand the languages I just spoke. I just spoke in 9 languages. What? You'd be right to think that there is no language in this world that I don't know. Of course, on the continent, the imperial language was considered the universal language, just like English in the modern world. However, each kingdom had its own native language, and archaic languages, idioms, etc. However, I learned all of them for the sake of reading. I'm certain I can learn a language I have never seen and heard in 10 days. Perhaps because of his unique vanity, many books were written in foreign languages in Dekuline's library, but it was too cumbersome to find and read each of their translations. Instead, I learned the languages they were written in, allowing me to speak in any tongue as if I was a native speaker of it. And runes are a kind of language. It took me quite a long time studying them. Do you understand this much? Luina wordlessly opened her lips and soon laughed. She looked and sounded like a robot. Gosh, I didn't know you had linguistic talent. She grew paler as she muttered those words and leaned her body against the window. Her slender shoulders drooped, and her empty gaze followed the view outside. You've only heard this much, and you're already so heartbroken, Luina frowned. Only, I nodded. Yes, this whole ordeal is just about a question's solution. Aren't you 4 years younger than me? You still can grow a lot, so time is definitely on your side. I promised, didn't I? 5 years. You will not be my stumbling block, and I will not be your stumbling block. The main quest wasn't long. Since I had already spent half a year in this world, the remaining time I had was about 4 years. She smiled weakly. 5 years is short if it means cutting ties with you, boss. But why does it have to be 5 years? You'll naturally find out about it. We're here, Ren said. Gazing out the window, I saw my destination. The Imperial Palace's outer walls looked as sturdy and mighty as ever. I got out of the car. Ren, take Luina to the University Tower. Got it. Thank you for your consideration, boss. Luina waved at me inside the car. Vroom. They left as I walked to the palace. Asterisk. Ashes germinated in a person's deepest darkness. They were parasites that devoured emotions and fed on emotional deficiencies and mental scars, after all, leading all thoughts of their host into cancer, the moment when their ego becomes engulfed in all kinds of negative thoughts. It would start taking over their vessel, starting at their weakest parts. Luina walked back to the University Tower feeling particularly dizzy. It was as if her whole world was spinning. She pressed a button on the elevator, 23rd floor, her office. She sat blankly in her chair, surrounding herself with a shabby space. Dekuline said 5 years. 5 years, just 5 years, she could endure that much. But why did she have to be humiliated like this? Luina saw a letter on her desk, a note left by the Magic Society. It seemed like someone opened her door and delivered it without her permission. The Magic Society hereby announces Monarcranked Luina's eviction from the organization. She stared blankly at that specific sentence, deducing their intention in their decision to turn their backs on her. The bastards who pushed her were trying to abandon her and attach themselves to Dekuline once more. Thump, her heart raced. Thump, her whole body felt hot and all sorts of painful and dark emotions hit her skull, making her feel like a hot awl was repeatedly piercing through her temples. These fucking bastards. Fucking dog bastards. Luina closed her eyes. Ashes rose from her shoulders. Dark particles spread like a spider's web and engulfed her entire office on the 23rd floor. Asterisk. Inside the 20th floor's study room, Sylvia's group double-checked their project. I checked everything. There's nothing wrong with this part. Nothing. When Eferen and Sylvia were peering through its parts, the door opened, and Eurozin came in with his hands full of treats. That was their signal to take a break. I was just craving for a snack. Thank you. Eferen immediately reached out her hand and pulled a dried squid out. Eurozin said, "Is it because the exams are coming?" The study room, library, and magic training room were also full. It seems all the debutantes have gathered. Knowing this would be the case, Eferen had reserved a room for them in the library since 4 a.m. Man tilde, the final exam will be a bit easier, right? There was that incident too, after all. I don't know. That aside, what are you doing during vacation? I have to go to my estate. I don't think I'll be able to stay in the tower for long. They need quite a few wizards back there. The three guys chatted, and Eferen continued chewing on dried squid to cool off her overheated head. Boom! Boom! They heard what sounded like explosions penetrate the walls around them out of the blue. What was that? Is there a fight going on? Boom! Boom! Not long after the noise started, they next heard a scream. Startled, Eferen and the others immediately opened the study room door. Hey, what was that? At the hallway outside their room, a certain wizard turned back. Looking at the back of his head, they realized it was Roten, another debutante. Eferen slowly walked towards him. Roten, right? Are you okay? Did you fight with... He turned around, revealing his lack of pupils. Black ashes poured out like vomit from his wide-open mouth and ears. Eferen unknowingly unleashed magic, pushing him away. She then swiftly ran straight back into their study room. Bang! As soon as she closed the door, she immediately asked, Did you see him? Did you saw him, right? The other 4 people with her remained silent, finding the scene they just saw so shocking that they needed some time to process it. What is this? Looking at them, she smiled as if she realized something. I'm dreaming right now. I must have fallen asleep due to the fatigue I accumulated from studying. That's it, isn't it? A dream. Yeah, isn't this a dream? I didn't sleep at all yesterday and today to practice. Sylvia moved at that point. She didn't hesitate at all. She stretched out her hand and swung it against Eferen's cheek. Slap! A loud sound rang out as Eferen was taken aback, her head twisted to the side. Ouch! In that state, all she could do was look at Sylvia as a handful of teardrops formed around her eyes. It hurt so much that she couldn't even yell. Instead, her lips just quivered despite finding what she did unfair and painful. Why you? Does it hurt? Of course it does. You hit me so hard, Sylvia nodded. I'm sorry, anyway, if it hurts, then we're not in a dream. I just wanted to let you know that. Eferen shut her mouth in disbelief, and Sylvia turned to look at the other 3. What about you guys? Not wanting to be slapped, they responded hastily. That's right. This isn't a dream. What made you even think this was a dream, Eferen? You're not making any sense? Why, yeah. After taking to heart the advice from Deculine, it had been 5 days since she started exercising. Sylvia looked out the window of the study room, feeling her physical abilities had grown. She also felt slightly nervous, finding the appearance of the bizarrely transformed Roten quite confusing. That's really unfair. What you did was annoying and painful. Am I not allowed to say anything wrong anymore? Huh? Sylvia ignored Eferen, who was crying while staring at her. Chapter 64. Chewing. Eferen, lying on the floor of the study room, chewed on a piece of dried squid. She then drank a soda to quench her thirst. Gulp, gulp. She took 3 sips and fumbled through the plastic bag, seemingly still unsatisfied. Her eyebrows furrowed when she found a chocolate bar. You bought some good stuff. I can eat it, right? Yeah. You did more on this project, so this is the least I can do, but weren't you in pain? Eurozin felt dumbfounded by Eferen's behavior. Oh well, I admit it's my fault this time for making no sense. Dreaming, hallucinating. What she said wasn't something wizards that always focused on reality should even think about. Chomp. She looked at Sylvia as she chewed on her snack, the taste of which couldn't be found in the countryside. She couldn't even fathom why it was white. Sylvia closed her eyes, sharing her familiar's vision outside the tower as it flew around the campus. Everything looked fine at first glance, so much so that the students didn't even pay much attention to it. However, using magic, she saw an entirely different sight. The tower's entire lower portion was buried in ashes. BZZZZ, BZZZZ. Her familiar alerted her as well, signaling that their connection was in danger of being cut off. Sylvia opened her eyes after ordering it to go home. The situation's dire. Dire. The other 4 people in the room asked, their eyes growing wider. The university tower is engulfed in ashes. The university tower. Then are we locked in here? Dane asked. Sylvia nodded. Encroachment occurred on the lower floors, and the entrance has also been blocked. No one seems to be aware of it, though. No one. The ashes themselves seem to have been imbued with the nature of enchantment. What about the professors? Can't they help? The ashes covered floors 1 through 25. The middle and upper floors where the professors stayed didn't seem aware of what was happening yet, and even if they were, most of them would be away preparing for the final exams. Boom, boom. Ugh. The study room door shook. Boom, boom. Roten banged on their study room's door outside. Possessed by the ashes, he seemed to have forgotten how to open it, but his fists were slowly scorching its surface. Roten, that crazy bastard, what happened to him? Phew. Ephraim took a deep breath. With her eyes closed, she composed a formula using wind and earth as constituent elements. Boom. 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 What are you trying to do, Ephraim? Just leave him be. If we do, the door will burn. Ephraim grabbed the doorknob and swung it open. Roten's unfocused eyes looked bizarre, but she didn't panic. Simultaneously, she manifested her magic. GRRRR. Roten rushed from the door as soon as it opened, but the wind from Ephraim's hand engulfed him. Invisible shackles. What she conjured was magic that detained the opponent by imparting the properties of the earth to the wind. Roten's body shrank as if trapped in a coffin. Pua. Is he? He spewed ashes from his mouth as he fell, but they stopped right in front of Ephraim's nose, blocked by Sylvia's barrier. Huh, almost. Move. Sylvia walked over and looked at Roten's face. His eyes were out of focus. His face was covered in black veins. His bare, ash-covered feet looked glued to the floor. It was as if the building and his body were connected. It's controlling him. From those clues, Sylvia reached a conclusion. It was unknown where the mysterious ashes came from, but it indirectly controlled his brain. Control? A kind of puppetry. He's like a zombie. Ephraim nodded and sneaked out of the room, looking around the hallway. The ashes clinging to the ceiling and walls of the hallway were wriggling like blood vessels. Not long after, the high temperature started affecting her. It's hot out here. It feels like the whole hallway is burning. Ephraim closed the door and turned to Sylvia. It's dangerous here. We have to go to the safest place possible until rescue or help arrives. Safest place? Yeah, I think. Ephraim and Sylvia's minds dawned upon the same answer, a place made of state-of-the-art engineering and mana stones that could prevent the heat of ashes from penetrating. Class A, 3rd floor. The head professor's classroom. Peek, Ephraim's face popped out of the door. Peek, Sylvia's head appeared above hers. The two of them watched the situation, glancing from side to side. The hallway, covered in ashes, looked terrifying, but they couldn't see any zombie-like entity. It's clear. 3 men came out at Ephraim's whisper. They crept their way through the floor, each of them wearing a gas mask. Their study room was on the 5th floor. Thinking it would be foolish to use the elevator in this situation, they headed for the emergency stairwell. Tip, tap. Ephraim kept glancing at the study room's windows as they moved, finding no debutantes left in them. Everyone seemed to have run away as soon as it began. While advancing, the one leading them, Ephraim, hastily stopped. What is it? Sylvia asked. There are a lot of monsters in the hallway. I think there are more than 10 of them. The entrance to the emergency stairwell and the hallway near it was infested with monsters. Ephraim bit her lower lip. We can't even kill them all. If they were real abominations, they could have easily killed or destroyed them, but they were all debutantes. That left them with no other choice but to avoid alerting them. Sylvia, can't you make a passage down here? This building's structure is made out of state-of-the-art magic engineering. I can't even touch its ceiling and floor. However, Sylvia drew a map on the floor. Emergency stairs, central hallway, study room 1, study room 2. It was the structure of their vicinity. There were many monsters in the space leading from the central hallway, where they were, to the emergency stairs. If we can get to study room 1, I can make a passage where the star is. It'll allow us to enter the emergency stairs from the side. What if those monsters are on the stairs too? Eurozin asked. Resolutely, Epeiren replied, "We'll just have to suppress them. I'll attract their attention. You go into the study room." Epeiren imbued mana in her bracelet. After that, she ran out into the hallway. Heya. A strong, tornado-like wind blew through the hallway, pushing the monsters away helplessly. Utilizing that opening, Sylvia and the other group members entered the study room. After causing a mess, she soon followed after them safely. "Are you okay, Epeiren? Did you get bitten or anything of the sort? Are you going to turn into a monster too?" She only nodded at Eurozin's question. "Let's go." Sylvia had already painted a passage on the wall, which they used to walk down the aisle and reach the emergency stairs. Grrrr. However, upon reaching it, they found far too many opponents scattered all over it. With one on each step, they immediately realized they wouldn't be able to detain them all. There's too many of them. I'm sorry, I didn't expect this." Epeiren frowned in embarrassment, but Sylvia thought differently. She pressed her index finger on her lips. SHH. Staring at the stairs, she concentrated mana on her retinas. 3 primary colors engulfed her eyes. The stairway profusely swayed and wobbled momentarily. Soon after, it disappeared like an illusion. Just as an eraser erased pencil writing, she deleted the stairs with her gaze. Crash! After the numerous monsters prowling around them fell, she closed her eyes, restoring what she removed. Cold sweat was forming on her forehead. Sylvia. That was some really amazing magic. We don't have time to talk. They went down the stairs together. Stop. They had reached the door of the 3rd floor's emergency passage, but they didn't hastily go inside, knowing full well that would be a mistake. More corrupted entities blocked the passage. Sylvia made another door some distance away from the entrance, which they then used to enter the floor. Let's go. They first looked for the class a classroom. They came here every week, but there were a lot more blocking their way today. The dozens of monsters roaming the hallways made it hard for them to reach their destination. What do we do? I'll draw their attention. You open the door, Epeiren declared. Crack after cracking her knuckles and looking around her, she quickly left. You idiots, I'm over here. As soon as her shout caught the attention of every single abomination in the hallway, Epeiren ran away immediately. Sylvia and the members rushed quietly and grabbed their classroom's doorknob. Click, click, locked. Eurozin and the men's complexion turned pale. Sylvia also bit her lip. What should we do? We're doomed. But Sylvia soon after heard whispers inside. There are people in there. Boom, boom, Sylvia knocked on the door. Open it. When her voice passed through the door, she heard a commotion inside. Boom, boom, Eurozin and the men banged on the door as well. Open it, now. Sylvia is here too, you know. If you don't open it, you're all dead. Sylvia, her name caused the commotion to grow louder. Boom, boom. At the same time, Epeiren, dragging their opponent's attention, began running back. There seemed to be at least 100 monsters attached to her tail. Open the door, Epeiren yelled. Slam Julia, a commoner, opened the door, allowing them to hurry inside. Wait for me. With everyone barely managing to get inside, she closed the door. Epeiren grabbed her chest and flopped to the floor. Wow, pant, wow, we got here somehow. Iffy, are you okay? Julia worriedly rushed to her side. Julia, smiling brightly, she hugged Julia. Gosh, if it weren't for Sylvia, how can you drag all the monsters here? You're so stupid. Lucia's sullen words fell on them at that moment. She had become Epeiren's new enemy these days, but she was particularly annoying right now. Boom, boom, boom. Monsters kept banging on the door from outside. Startled, Julia looked at it. Iffy, what do we do now? Boom, boom, boom. We have no choice. Boom, boom, boom. We have to wait for help. Rustling, Epeiren took out a small bag full of treats, which she kept safe even while running. In this situation, food meant survival. What's that? Epeiren pointed at the blackboard. 4 things to keep in mind. 1. Break through the core of the barrier. 2. Avoid charging head-on and focus on cooperating with each other. 3. Survive. 4. Never forget that this blackboard serves as the only link between you guys and me. I think it's just a sum-up of the last exam. Despite Julia's answer, Efren stared intently at it. The only link between you and me, there was chalk placed under it. Efren took it and wrote something. "Dekilleen, you idiot, boom, boom, boom." Gosh, that scared me. Then, without much thought, she sat back. The Emperor's study, a place of learning. Your Majesty, magic educator Dekilleen has arrived. When her servant knocked on the doorknob held by a golden lion sculpture's jaw, her voice sternly came out. "Come in." As the door opened, Emperor Sophian was revealed sitting in a somewhat loose position. She gave me a once-over, her eyes seemingly rotting due to constant boredom. "I see you, Your Majesty." "Humph. They say your attire is the trend of the continent. Certainly, your outfits are different from those wandering around the royal court." I walked over to her without a word and sat down in front of her, noticing the chessboard in between us. "Are we playing chess today, too?" "No, before that, let's talk. I'm slowly getting tired of chess." I nodded. It wasn't incomprehensible. She was the type of person who never seemed to get absorbed in anything and was rather quick to get sick of any activities. "I heard you met Rohakan?" "Yes, and that you let him go." My skills weren't enough. The Emperor grinned. "If you weren't strong enough, imagine how weak my knights are." "Rohakan was your teacher, wasn't he?" "I haven't learned anything from him to label him as such." "Right. There would be nothing to learn. Because of that damn bastard, the last Emperor's health deteriorated. It's as if he killed not only the Empress, but also the Emperor." There was no anger in her voice. She was merely pretending to be angry. For her, even emotions were boring. "Dekilleen, the eunuch said that you are one of the best brains on the continent." "Me?" "Yes, a genius who made hundreds of millions just through auctions. These days, there are many rumors that even I didn't know. They kept adding more labels to my name like Rohakan's nemesis, the smartest human on the continent, and so on. So, let me ask you this. I intend on going on an expedition." "An expedition?" "I will conquer extinction." The Emperor placed a map on the desk. "To do that, I must first get rid of internal hindrances. I must punish the demon-blooded." That was a bit bothering. I lifted my head and looked into her eyes. "What?" "They don't seem to be the ones causing internal hindrances." "How do you know that?" "Because I'm the best brain on the continent." Sophian bit her lip without a word. Her eyes, which had always been indifferent and hazy, curved into arcs. "Ha ha ha." Even her laugh sounded monotonous, almost robot-like. "You're funny." "I'm not lying. I see the world differently. If it would allow me to stop the massacre of the demon-blooded, I would gladly be the smartest person on the continent." The Emperor's lips parted. "Humph. If so, you should already know that no matter what you say, I won't change my mind. I intend to destroy the demon-blooded first, then gain extinction's resentment on my own." "On your own?" "Yes, I will be at the forefront of this expedition. I will wield my sword and use magic. That's how I'll leave myself in history." Her mischievous eyes stared at me. She seemed to be expecting a reaction from me. I read her power displayed in the character magnifying lens. Rating, authority, description. Even the magnifying glass couldn't read her, but I knew the Emperor's secret even without it. Regression by death. The reason for her boredom was the lack of death. Humans willfully lived since they knew death would one day come for them, but Sophian, lacking that definite end, grew full of laziness and boredom. That was why she was dangerous. The moment she died in-game, the game would be over and the player would be forced to regress. I was no longer a player, however. Therefore, the Emperor of this world shouldn't die no matter what. I had to make sure she wouldn't give up on life. Her existence itself was my death. "I see. But your Majesty speaks as if there is no death awaiting you." For a moment, her face hardened and red flames engulfed her mischievous eyes. "What does that mean?" "Your Majesty will learn of what I mean through magic." I asked what you meant. "Once you have mastered my lessons and I can no longer provide more meaning to you, then the true point of my words will show itself to you. If she were to learn enough magic, I would let her know what I meant." Bang! Sophian slammed her hand on the desk. "Are you disdaining me?" "I told you to tell me." She stared at me with eyes that seemed to scorch me, making me feel like she wanted to rip me apart, Your Majesty. However, I didn't avoid her gaze. I just sat and endured the pressure she emitted. I am Dekiline. Her brow twitched. Once I've made up my mind, no one can break it, I said with a smile. Veins appeared on Sophian's temple. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Ephraim looked at the clock. It was already 10 p.m. 12 hours had passed since the incident began. No, maybe 24 hours. The windows were covered in ashes. With only darkness around them, they couldn't measure the passage of time. Boom, boom, boom. The rescue they called for didn't come. The banging on their classroom door didn't stop either. Boom, boom, boom. Gosh, this is driving me crazy. Boom, boom, boom. They couldn't break the door, but the sounds they made alone were extremely stressful, piercing into their brains even if they covered their ears. Can't we activate the barrier? Fuck, foo-woo-woo-woo-woo-wok, Beck yelled. Ephraim replied with a sigh. We don't know the password. Only the professor knows. Shut the fuck up. You're the one who asked, so why are you swearing? Boom, boom, boom. Again, they put them on the edge of insanity. Boom, boom, boom. Was it just their mental stress, or were the ashes that had taken over the tower sucking in their souls? Sigh. Ephraim took a plastic bag of snacks out of her pocket. At the rustling sound, all the debutantes in the classroom turned to her. What is that? Ephraim, where did that come from? Their long, tormented eyes glistened with hunger. Yeah, I was about to share it anyway. Wait. Tea, that's mine. Eurozin reached out and grabbed the bag. Eurozin? What's wrong with you all of a sudden? I bought it with my own money. Eurozin's eyes were bloodshot. Oh, okay, I bought it. Ephraim was startled. He looked as if he had lost his mind. Regardless, she got angry at him. Why are you mad at me? I bought it. I got it, so get your hands off of it. You let go. Why are you so childish? Are you going to eat alone in this situation? I said I bought it. Just fucking give it to me, you poor bastard. Rip. The plastic ripped and spilled cookies, chocolate, and drinks. Thud, thud, thud. The eyes of the wizards followed the falling snacks. Stop. Sylvia's voice echoed just as a commotion was about to begin. That's pathetic. Fighting over just food. Tilda, a rather disrespectful laugh, intervened. Then what shall we do, Sylvia? Lucia asked, a rotten smile hanging on her lips. What kind of solution would a noble like Sylvia come up with in this situation, I wonder? Sylvia looked at Lucia as she pondered about it. What would she do? Maybe she would have done this. The nobles must concede. I beg your pardon? The nobles should be the ones to eat, gain strength, and lead the commoners. Take care of your elegance that you're always concerned about during times like this. Huh. The nobles, including Lucia, looked at Sylvia with a distorted face. Simultaneously, Ephraim packed the sweets and came to the desk. I will distribute everything equally. Distribute what? I bought it. Oh, you shut up. When Ephraim yelled, Eurozin trembled. Enough. Instead, I won't eat either. I already ate a lot. Rumble. At that moment, a thunderous sound caused the entire classroom to vibrate. What was that? Everyone looked at the door in shock. Boom. Its entrance was shaking. Class A was the sturdiest classroom in the tower. Boom. Regardless, debris ominously fell from its walls. B barrier. We need a barrier. Boo-woo-woo-woo-woo-woo-woo-woo. A shattering roar echoed. The classroom's blackboards fell on the floor. Boo-woo-woo-woo-woo-woo-woo. Ah, screams and annoying wails filled their vicinity. Come on, come on. Out of fear, most of them shouted and yelled gibberish. Amid that wretched mess, Ephraim grabbed her head. Boo-woo-woo-woo-woo-woo-woo-woo. She then looked at the blackboard behind the table. Despite all the other blackboards being torn off, it remained intact. 4 things to keep in mind. 1. Break through the core of the barrier. 2. Avoid charging head-on and focus on cooperating with each other. 3. Survive. 4. Never forget that this blackboard serves as the only link between you guys and me. Never forget that this blackboard serves as the only link between you guys and me. The only link? Ah. At that moment, Ephraim came to a realization. Scratch, scratch. Some letters began to be engraved on it. Boom. The vibrations were growing more and more intense. Soon enough, a blow hit the entire wall of the classroom. During such great chaos, a sentence appeared on the blackboard's surface. This is Dekiline. Communicate with me. The moment she read it, Eferen felt like she was about to cry. However, Eferen gets a penalty point. Chapter 65, Practical Experience 3. However, Eferen gets a penalty point. Eferen stared blankly at the sentence, forgetting the extremely dire situation around her for a brief moment. Her number of penalty points appeared in the air. -14 points. One more point, and she'd be assigned to cleaning duty every day for the dirtiest comfort room. If she accumulated more than 25 points, her dormitory scholarship benefit would be cancelled. The expected amount she'd lose would be 50,000 elnis per semester. She quickly picked up the chalk. Eferen wasn't the one who wrote to Killeen, you fool. A reply arrived quickly. Who did it? After hesitating and contemplating, she wrote, Sylv, what's going on? Sylvia approached her before she could finish it, causing her to rattle like a wagon caught in a stony path. This, she said, erasing the letters with her robe sleeve. I think this blackboard is connected to Professor de Killeen. Fortunately, Sylvia looked at the blackboard, seemingly unaware of her plot. What's going on? Why the blackboard again? Iffy, what's going on? Lucia and Julia soon approached her as well. The other wizards couldn't afford to pay attention to it. Another powerful shock made the classroom tremble. Eferen wrote another message quickly. Now's not the time for this. The classroom is on the verge of being destroyed, and we don't know the barrier's code. Tack, 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 tack. A formula consisting of circles and lines began to be written on the blackboard. CRRRKKK? The wall rumbled once more against yet another devastating blow. With the damage it had accumulated, they knew it wouldn't last much longer. Some wizards had already fainted, and many were terrified, but Eferen, Sylvia, and Lucia looked only at what was being written. CRRKKK. Their opponents had already delivered lethal attacks against their only line of defense dozens of times. However, right before the wall collapsed, initiate the spell. The formula was completed. Sylvia moved first, releasing mana and drawing a magic formula on the floor. GRRR. Their classroom's floor and ceiling were made entirely of mana stones. Inscribing them with a code, she activated the crystal ball, the source of their mana, unlocking and activating the barrier. Boom! The sounds of ruination subsided, and the space around them changed in an instant. A peaceful meadow swallowed the ashes' darkness. Such was the greatness of their classroom that cost 10 million elnis to build. Phew! Eferen plopped down and placed her hand against her pounding chest. Sylvia also breathed out and looked at the blackboard. Letters were still appearing in it. Don't panic. Calm down and focus on the situation. You're no longer in class. Welcome to reality. Ask him when the rescue will come, Lucia said. De Killeen had already answered it before they could even ask, however. Hundreds of debutantes are being held hostage, so it is impossible for us to enter right now. The best course of action here is for you to solve it yourself. No. Isn't that too irresponsible of them? Sylvia fiercely glared at her, causing Lucia to shrug in surprise. According to an external analysis of the different mana concentrations, the source of this disaster is hypothesized to be on the 23rd floor. Who's on the 23rd floor? Eferen asked, looking at them. Lucia answered with her arms crossed. Well, there is one external professor's office on that floor, but I don't know who occupies it. The 23rd floor, engulfed in ashes, had been turned into a huge nest. A large cocoon pulsated at its center, and a spider web that stretched out in all directions fed it. Listen. Luina heard a dry, crumbling voice within the cocoon. Complete erosion is required. Complete erosion meant to devour the brains of the debutantes dominated by the ashes. They would absorb all mana and nutrients, eliminating any chances of them being revived. Complete erosion is required. No. Luina refused. Even though she allowed the ashes' parasitism, her most primal personality was still strong. Her beliefs and convictions held her instincts together. Complete erosion is required. Luina opened her eyes, her black pupil dawning upon the cocoon's skin. The world was dark, but her mana felt infinite. Complete erosion. Pow! Luina hit the cocoon with her fist. The loud voice stopped, but the anger she felt grew stronger. In the shattered consciousness, only one person's face came to mind. She recited his name. Deculin. Efren laid out their food supply on the table: 3 chocolates, 2 big cans of drinks, 2 squids, 1 gummy candy, 5 bags of chips, 2 cream pies, a pack of gum, 5 tangerines. If there were only 5 of them, it could be considered ample enough, but how many of us are here? No one answered. More than half of them had fallen asleep. That was understandable. They had just been through terrible suffering after all. Sylvia replied, 51 people. The biggest hindrance to their survival was the amount of food they had. The basal metabolic rate of a wizard with magical powers in his body was comparable to that of a strong farmer. Sigh. Reluctantly, Efren sent a message to Deculin. I don't think we'll last long in this place. We're running out of food. I'm thinking of going to the basement canteen. A reply arrived quickly. Look at the toolbox at the back of the classroom. Efren did as instructed. The space changed due to the barrier, but the toolbox and other equipment were still where they were before. She ran and opened the door. Whoa! Stocks of frozen meat, water, canned goods, and many other sources of nutrients were revealed. If they ate sparingly, they could last for about 2 days. Efren muttered in admiration. How did the professor know when to do this? He must have prepared it in advance, you idiot. The tower's a common target for terrorism. Anyway, go make food already. Lucia laughed in disdain and ruffled Efren's hair, causing her to bite her lip as she glared at her. What are you looking at? Do you want me to do it? I don't know how to cook. You're useless even in this kind of situation, huh? Feeling pissed off, Efren rolled up her sleeves but soon saw more messages coming in. Rest for now. I'm trying to figure out a way to fix this externally. If any of you fight while you're in there, I'll be giving penalty points later based on the witnesses' stories. How did he know? Efren reluctantly prepared a meal. Grumbling, she used magic to create fire, which she then used to roast meat and cook soup. She then put both dishes on the table. One by one, the wizards who caught a whiff of her cooking's delicious scent began to wake up. I went directly to the Eucline Mansion's warehouse as soon as I left the Imperial Palace. We just ate. We're resting now. These monsters took possession of our colleagues, so we can't use violence against them. Moreover, on the 23rd floor, there is an office of an external professor. Luina. Standing up, I stared at the blackboard. Of course, the Baron of Ashes parasitizing her was a huge problem, but it was also quite questionable. Luina had to be a named character with a Monner rating of 3. Is it because of our contract? Did it affect her Monner rating? Or was it because the way I tormented her made her mental fortitude weaker? Regardless, it wasn't just a bad situation. The Baron of Ashes, whose Monner rating was lower than hers, shouldn't be able to completely encroach on Luina. Knock, knock. Just then, Roy came in. Master. Everyone has arrived. Tell them to come in. Yes. Roy returned with the professors I had called. I was about to greet them, but I frowned. Head professor, we're here. Those who were talking up front were the tenured professors such as Relin and Sire. The younger professors, including Kelladin, whom I had been looking for, squatted behind them. Here are the ashes gathered by the knights. Relin held out a reagent bottle filled with the parasites. After analyzing and understanding them, I planned to create a custom magic since, for as long as the Baron of Ashes was still parasitizing Luina, it wouldn't be easy to fix the situation through normal means. Subsequently, several pieces of equipment flooded into the warehouse. Microscopes, tables, monostones, related magic books, magic tools, they just kept coming. All items were directly airlifted from the Isle of Wizards' Wealth. I neatly arranged everything with psychokinesis. Bang, bang, bang. In no time at all, the warehouse turned into a magic tower laboratory. I did all this simply because I couldn't stand a dirty and inefficient environment. Whoa, this is great. If you need any help, just let us know. Help would be nice. I answered Relin's words. He took a deep breath solemnly and ferociously. Yes. The tower being attacked is an unprecedented situation. We've already determined, however. I pointed to the young professors behind them. Only the 3 of you will remain here. Kelladin, the glasses holder, Jennifer, a master of harmony magic, and Grant, a former addict. Alan seemed to be trapped inside the tower, but I wasn't worried at all. The rest may go. Huh? Having too many cooks spoil the broth. It was far more efficient to exclude them altogether, since they would undermine the motivation of the new professors with their useless political quarrels and their sense of sympathy. Head professor, they're not yet very experienced, so they're extremely lacking. I must have said something wrong. Relin's expression brightened. Check the conditions surrounding the tower, professors. This is an extremely important task, so please, if the situation escalates over there, I'll be needing your help to suppress it. I pushed the old professors out with psychokinesis. After that, I looked at the ones that remained without saying a word. What should we do? Kelladon asked cautiously. That's obvious. I laid down dozens of magic books on their desk, all of them related to puppetization. Bang, bang, bang. Understand the gist of each of these. Bewildered, they looked at the magic books piled up like a mountain before them. We're currently formulating magic that'll be effective against the ashes. Damn, that doesn't make any sense. It'll take them several weeks to create new magic. Lucia exclaimed nervously. As a result, the atmosphere in the classroom grew darker again. Ask him how long we'll have to wait. Be quiet, Dorothy. Greatly surprised by Sylvia's remarks, Lucia held her breath as if her heart had stopped. She ran toward Sylvia and shoved her face beside her ear. I definitely told you not to call me by that name. Why did you suddenly do it again? Dorothy? Who's Dorothy? Behind her back, Ephraim muttered innocently. Lucia put her hands together and begged Sylvia. Please. Lucia was actually her pseudonym, and her real name was Dorothy. Her true name was so sloppy that she forced her father to change it. Only if you keep quiet? Sure, sure. Sylvia pushed Lucia away and got up. We're going to help Professor de Killeen from our side. Help. Yes, okay. I will do that. Dorothy, no, Lucia, agreed before Sylvia could even say anything. Ephraim tilted her head. Sylvia's next words terrified them. I'm going to catch a debutante and dissect it. Sofian Ekater von Yigas asked. Do you know how it feels to die year after year? Do you know the misery of being twisted by an incurable disease that not even the entire continent is aware of? Of making your way through the darkness, never knowing what lies ahead of you? Do you know the pain brought by a disease that engulfs your whole body? Indeed, her pain made her feel like her ribs were being broken while an awl was piercing through her entirety. You know the feeling of resurrecting every time you die and enduring the same pain from the beginning. Do you know of such a damn curse? She died dozens of times at the age of 8. There were times when she waited for a year to die, and there were times when she couldn't stand it and cut off her own throat. However, no matter how many times she succumbed to death, whenever she opened her eyes, it would be the 1st of January, and she'd be a kid again lying on a luxurious bed and looking out her window, where the gardens of the Imperial Palace, forever in spring, awaited her gaze. Her brain had already matured, but her body couldn't escape youth. Sofian often had that weird feeling like she was garbage floating in the ocean, reaching an impasse where even if she rotted away, she wouldn't be able to escape. It was said that all human beings desired life. However, she wished for death. She longed to disappear even after she had died. The only thing that made her happy every time she went back was her brother's face, but even that feeling eventually faded. She had a limit on how much she could hold on after all. There was always the smell of iron from a knight, the sweet scent of a eunuch, the aroma of money from a merchant, the smell of disinfectant from a doctor, and the smell of grass from a herbalist. Sofian had no regrets about life, which to her was just a hellish cycle. She had no passion. No emotion, how could she? However, she hoped that her whole life, marred by her pain, would become dull. She prayed that it would collapse without agony. It was said that this continent was truly harmless, which was unfortunate for her, who lived in a cramped imperial palace and a body that did not grow. She had become so crippled that she became unaware of her own misfortunes. The me who died over and over, the me who killed all that I had within de Killeen. Do you know of her? No, how could you know? With nobody else that could understand her, she prayed and complained to the only one who understood her every night. She prayed to him, the one who gave her her fate and cage, the one who growled while watching her boredom from the highest points of the sky, a place no one could reach, or in the deepest depths below the earth, where not even the tiniest ray of sunlight could shine. She sent her promise. She would kill God. I must have met Deucalion when I was a child, but he wasn't a noteworthy person then. Aside from his face, nothing about him really stood out. Of course, Sophian overcame the incurable disease of the past and survived to the end. Since then, she had made countless assassinations and poisoning attempts, and had died several times, but she defeated death each time. Thanks to that, she found out that this damn regression was a 1-year cycle. If she died at the age of 9, she regressed to January 1 of the year she turned 9. If she died at the age of 10, she'd regress to the edge of 10. Your Majesty speaks as if there is no death awaiting you, were Deucalion's words. As if there is no death. Was it just a sentence to express her recklessness? No. The nuance his words gave off was quite different. Moreover, he also stated, I see the world differently. Was she included in his definition of differently? Charon. Yes, Sophian called her knight. Eucline should have been one of the families who attended that day. The incurable disease that killed her dozens of times was actually poison. She felt disappointed when she heard the story. Yes, all the counts of the continent were there. The suspect was probably one of the families who attended the day she ascended to the throne. Sophian intended to find the criminal and kill him, tearing his limbs apart and annihilating his family and relatives. However, after being engrossed in it for about 3 years, she grew bored with it, causing her to cut it off. After all, they only died once. It didn't matter how many times she regressed after death. They only had one life. She didn't get anything worthwhile for what she suffered and compared to the effort she put in. Soon enough, she grew bored of it as well. Even revenge began to feel cumbersome. If you have any questions for Deucalion, you must learn magic first. Charon's voice sounded joyful, causing Sophian to clench her teeth. You're not any better than me, though. Not too long ago, you decided there was something wrong with Deucalion after just hearing some rumors. He lowered his gaze. Admittedly, I made a mistake then. Deucalion's honest today. You, who can see through people, should already know that. Sophian looked over the desk where Eucline, Understanding Elemental Magic, a book left behind by Deucalion, was placed. Its hardcover, adorned with gold leaf and jewels, had a note attached to it. Please prepare up to Chapter 1. Please study. Charon. Sophian stared at him as he responded emotionlessly. Yes. Fuck you. She raised her middle finger at him. Charon smiled silently, closing his eyes to pretend he saw nothing. I'm going to bed. Do not bring anything into my room today. Take the book with you. Piss off. Sophian went straight up to her boudoir. The court wizard and servants said something about an incident happening over the Imperial University Tower, but she ignored it. She lay on the bed and looked up at the ceiling, sorting out the thoughts that popped into her mind. All those thoughts resulted in a single emotion: curiosity. Did they say Imperial University Tower incident? Suddenly, the words of her servants came to mind again. Laughing in disdain, Sophian got up from her bed again. Chapter 66. Practical Experience 4. Temporary Laboratory in the Eucline Mansion. I looked closely at the ashes under the microscope. I tried to understand it on a particle-by-particle basis, injecting mana and tearing it apart with psychokinesis. Professor, look at this, Kelludden shouted, pointing to the blackboard. Scratch, 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 scratch. A sophisticated report was being written on the green surface. Sylvia here. We captured a debutante who had been puppeted and separated him from the ashes. The result of our analysis is as follows. She discussed how the ashes encroached upon the debutante and what the process of that puppeteering was. The way Sylvia analyzed and separated the specimen with her own magic was almost at an anatomic level. A certain thought popped into my mind as I looked at it. Separation. Separation of ashes and the debutantes. What if a circuit that neutralized the control of the ashes was added to the formula of the barrier? Beyond that, what if the barrier was constructed in the magic tower and then completed? It's possible. Implanting a circuit in specific magic, known as magic weaving, had already been done dozens of times. My psychokinesis was created that way. What's possible? Kellodden asked. I'll make a barrier that breaks down ashes and deliver it to the debutantes. A barrier. It would take too long. I shook my head. Since it wasn't completely new magic, the consumption of mana wouldn't be severe. Right now, decomposition was a common spell that was used even in garbage dumps. It is quite possible. If I envision it and add the talents of Sylvia and Ephraim, of course, it's possible. Professor? He stared at the blackboard without saying a word and pondered. There was no need to take notes. All of this was going to happen in my head. Attention. A disrupting shout echoed. I turned to the entrance, feeling the urge to kill. 11 individuals of unknown names stood where I was looking, forming a line, the Imperial Knights. Attention, please. When the knight yelled again, a familiar voice came from behind him. Humph, so noisy. It was the Emperor's voice. As I was about to express proper curtsy, I abruptly stopped. The creature that showed up proudly wasn't the Emperor. In this possessed state, my ears are sensitive. Don't talk loudly. She had plenty of red furs, and her long tail fluttered, but her legs were short. It was a luxurious-looking cat. Your Majesty? Yes, de Killane. It's one of the magic that I learned. I'm too lazy to go outside. Hey, don't touch my tail. I'm sorry. I was speechless for a moment. Possession was part of harmony magic. Complete possession, which borrowed the mouth and eyes of living beings, was quite difficult to learn. Naturally, however, she could fully utilize it. Moreover, the munchkin she used was a royal breed. The quality of the Emperor's mana was currently level 2, and once an awakening event was held in the future, she'd reach level 1. She was a genius who had the talent to master all the skills in the world, after all, including magic and sword skills. If I were to express Emperor Sophian in one sentence, it would be, the person closest to God. That indolence could either be a blessing or a curse to this world. Lower your back. Yes, the cat jumped over the knight's back. Oh, however, her first attempt failed since her legs were too short compared to the knight's large body. This guy, bend further down. I'm sorry, this time the munchkin successfully climbed on the knight's back. She grinned, patting his pharynx with her tail to express her satisfaction. Don't you dare move an inch. My legs are short, so it's dangerous. The Emperor slapped the knight with her front paw. Yes, don't scream either. Everyone get out of the way. At that time, George, the court wizard, appeared as well. Rumors that the Emperor's cat was here seem to have spread. Your Majesty, how can you master possession magic so perfectly? Annoying. How did he know? George looked at the red cat with thrilled eyes. Not long after, however, he swiftly hardened his expression. Professor de Killane, what are you going to do from now on? I intend to invent a barrier magic that decomposes ashes. Invent a barrier? Yes, one that decomposes ashes alone. You want to create a new barrier? George asked, his voice full of doubts. That's right. How long will it take you to come up with that magic? It won't take a day. What? It's a simple task. It's not that surprising. No, you need to elaborate on it further. I had no time to waste on explanations. I spoke kindly but stubbornly. No matter what happens, I'll lead. Hence, I take responsibility for this too. George clicked his tongue but nodded anyway. Okay. Anyway, if you're creating a barrier, what about the formula? Have you written it down on a scroll? George asked. I looked at George without saying a word. The silence between us continued for a little while. I was thinking about how to explain it, but even that in itself was already a waste of time. I just tapped my temple with my finger. It's all in my head. What? The cat asked. If I were to explain it in a sentence. I used mental calculation. The debutantes were certain it was 3 o'clock, but they didn't know if it was in the morning or afternoon. Regardless, Sylvia and the others stared blankly at the blackboard. An expansive formula filled its surface. Below the magic circle that de Killane invented himself, there was the following sentence. Can you cast this barrier? It's possible, Sylvia answered on behalf of everyone stunned. Lucia could do nothing but shrug as she looked at her. Right. It's not impossible if we could draw and recreate his formula. De Killane's barrier explanation was detailed and friendly. Even a debutante could understand it. The problem was that the barrier's magic circle was too large. Its total area covered the entire 3rd floor. This room will serve as its center. I'll go out and draw the formula on the 3rd floor. As for the mana it requires, we should have enough since there are many wizards here. Ainz said, looking around the classroom. Including herself, there were around 50 of them. If they were to collectively use their mana, it wouldn't be difficult to activate the barrier. Won't we need a catalyst to construct it? At Julia's concern, Sylvia loosened her own necklace. It was an artifact made entirely of mana diamonds, her mother's keepsake. It was imbued with several special effects, including mana storage expansion and magic amplification. Use this as a catalyst. Are you sure? Lucia, who knew the value of her necklace, asked, astonished. Sylvia didn't answer. Hump, if you want to go that far, then. Sighing, Lucia also loosened the bracelet on her wrist. These 2 will suffice. My bracelet is an heirloom worth 20 million elnies. T20 million, got it. I'll be drawing the formula now. Ainz then cut her long hair in one swing, which surprised Lucia. Are you insane? Why did you cut it? Your hair can't be used as a catalyst. You know that, right? Don't you have a brain? Gosh, who said I would use it as a catalyst? It gets in the way when I move. Iffy, it's okay. Ignore her. Julia calmed Ainz. She then trimmed her hair that had been cut arbitrarily. Okay, Tilda, it's pretty now. Sylvia then pulled her long hair up. Now tied into a ponytail, it ran down the back of her porcelain neck. Wow, Sylvia, you look beautiful. Seeing Eurozen and the others complimenting her, Ainz momentarily felt regretful. I just had to pull it up too. Ainz. You're fast, so I'll leave the formula drawing to you. I'll draw the monster's attention to minimize the threat that'll be coming after you. Draw their attention? Yes, just like what we did in the practical exercise. Ainz nodded. A short sentence on the blackboard then calmed and comforted them. I'll trust and wait. That was all they needed. Okay, let's go. After finishing their preparations, the 2 broke the barrier in the classroom. Thump. The tremoring sound rang again, but Ainz and Sylvia didn't hesitate to open the door, finding the infected debutantes and huge golems made out of ashes. As Sylvia caught their attention, Ainz cast self-psychokinesis and clung to the 3rd floor's ceiling. Woo! Sylvia coated the golems' bodies with pure white paint-like magic, which soon turned into a flame that exuded extremely high temperatures. Her targets burned in an instant. At the same time, Sylvia covered the pavement in blue, which soon turned to ice that made the infected debutantes on it flounder, unable to take even a few steps. However, at some point, thick ashen appendages like the kraken's tentacles gripped Sylvia's waist. They then flailed her around and slammed her onto the pavement. Ouch! Letting out a single groan, she immediately erased the tentacles without showing any pain. However, her stomach felt hot, as if she just gained an internal injury. Sylvia staggered, staring at the dark hallway. Click, click. The sound of heels hitting the ground echoed. It's useless. Sylvia looked at the existence that appeared in the dark. Professor Luina. She, the head professor of the Kingdom's University Tower, had become a monster that assimilated with the ashes. You have a strange talent. I'm jealous. Her voice sounded bizarre yet muffled. I'll kill you because I'm jealous. She grinned, the corners of her mouth stretching to the bottom of her ears as if tearing her face apart. More ashes flooded down from her lips, taking on the form of a huge blade. Woo-woo-woo-woosh. Sylvia made her surroundings her own, deleting her weapon before it could even reach her. These are the 3 primary colors. Bearing witness to Slyvia's creation, Luina muttered with admiration. A magic equivalent to a miracle. It breaks reality, interferes with the status quo, and recreates all things as its caster desires. Taking advantage of her monologue, Sylvia drew a cage and locked her in. A nonsensical origin that can roam the entire world at will. Clank. Luina, banging on the grate and licking her lips, clenched both of her fists. With a twisted, raccoon-like expression, she spat out curses. Fuck, the world is so unfair. This doesn't make sense. None of this fucking makes sense. Ashes exploded soon after that. With the bars around her now broken, Luina's fist connected against Sylvia's stomach, delivering a blow loaded with speed and weight. Ah, she bounced off and hit the wall. At that moment, her chest tightened. Her broken ribs pierced her lungs and she couldn't breathe. Humph. You keep erasing my ashes with various techniques, but it doesn't matter. You're going to die anyway." The difference between them was so great she thought she might die. Her pain heated her whole body, and she trembled in fear. Still, Sylvia didn't run away. How long she would last remained unknown, but she decided to at least hold out until her mana ran out. I will not lose. Perseverance being the key to victory was all too familiar to Sylvia after all, since she lived day to day enduring it. Tick-tock, tick. Calm down and remain on standby, everyone. Lucia took on the role of leading the debutantes in the classroom. All 49 of them had already warmed up, and were now just waiting for the barrier to be completed. Tick-tock, tick. The clock's second hand ticked amid the silence, their heartbeat echoing with it as their hands trembled like leaves swaying against the winds. Lucia wiped her sweat from her forehead. Tick-tock, tick. The debutante's breathing became rough. Those who had fragile psyches looked so serious they almost passed out. Don't lose your consciousness. If we don't do it right, just know that we won't have a nice life in the tower next semester. Everyone was forced to come back to their senses at Lucia's chirping cry. Tick-tock, tick. After a few more moments, the slowly moving second hand stopped. It was Ephraim's signal. Now, all of the debutantes, including Lucia, released their mana at the right timing. Woo-woo-woong, they condensed all of it into their catalysts, Sylvia's necklace and Lucia's bracelet. Their heirlooms received mana from 49 different individuals and delivered all of it to the barrier's formula. Blue magic rushed like a firework. Woo-woo-whoosh. A light so bright it almost broke their retinas flashed, causing the classroom's interior to burn up like a supernova. Their mana was consumed in an instant, and the exhausted debutantes fell one by one. Ugh! Lucia endured with all her might, imbuing as much mana as she could into the catalysts, but it wasn't enough. There was a pain in the back of her neck as if it were cut off. Ugh! Her eyes clouded, and her body staggered. Eventually, she fell to the floor. In that state, she stared at the corner of the barrier. Its bright light had started fading away like a bonfire that had run out of wood to burn. She knew she shouldn't leave it like that, but her body wouldn't listen to her. Lucia could only blink at it. I can't. As her eyelids were about to close, she saw a familiar figure. The person looked down at her with a cold expression. Dequilline's assistant professor, Alan. In the next instant, their catalyst's light burned once more, this time more brilliantly than any other light source she had ever seen, as his mana rushed forward, blazing like the sun. The moment its formula was completed, a radiant flash devoured the entirety of their surroundings. A barrier had manifested. Mom, why did my cat die? I loved and cherished him as hard as I could, but he still left my side. Why did he betray me when I loved him? Life has always been like that. He didn't betray you, Sylvia. He's leaving to go to a better place. In that distant country, he'll be waiting patiently for you. You're lying. How long will you be with me then, Mom? Tilda, I wonder, Tilda, where? Where, sorry. Don't cry, Tilda, where, I will stay with you as long as you want. Oh, then, Sylvia always wallowed in her dreams. The reality she wanted was not in the present but the future, after all. The present was just a stepping stone for it. She stayed up night after night reading magic books, even sacrificing her time for meals to avoid wasting even a second, or went to the floating island every week to find information. She didn't do those simply because she wanted to. She didn't do it because it was fun. Her mother left her side at an early age to go to the land of rainbows, where her cat waited. From the time her mother, the one who painted her life, disappeared, until now that she had become a wizard at the Imperial University Tower, the world had lacked color. It looked thick and opaque, like a crushed oil painting. For her, the present was a place she didn't want to stay for long. Sylvia often turned her clock's hands with her eyes tightly closed, hoping that once she opened them, she would be in the distant future where she'd be more mature and blunt, but above all, where her memories would hurt less. When I become an archmage and ascend to the skies, my mother will be able to see me. I'll make her proud of me. For her, the present was just a preparation period to make their picnic in the distant future more enjoyable. Woo-wash, a lonely wind blew. The air currents that rushed into the sealed Imperial University tower made Sylvia realize that the barrier had been activated. Gosh, those guys did something useless. However, she had run out of mana, and Luina was still standing opposite of her. Sylvia placed her hand around her collarbone. The keepsake from her mother, who had always embraced her, wasn't there. Die. Luina released ashes. With no mana left to defend herself, Sylvia could only close her eyes in a hurry. The rushing ashes stopped right in front of her, but she didn't see it happen. She just stumbled and fell. Thud. Something supported her before she could reach the floor, however. It felt as sturdy as a wall. Sylvia opened her eyes lightly, and though his face wasn't visible, he found his broad chest keeping her up. Sylvia. His voice alone was enough for Sylvia to determine who he was. She tilted her head up slightly. His eyes were looking at her. "Don't worry, I won't let you fall," he said, displaying what looked like a faint smile. Sylvia wanted to say something to him, but her lips refused to move. She couldn't even wiggle her fingertips. Mana exhaustion had set in. "You always repay my faith. I will now take over this responsibility as your professor." Sylvia leaned her entire weight against him. Smiling faintly, she closed her eyes and fell asleep, clutching his collar. "You can rest now." Chapter 67. Sorting Things Out 1. Sylvia had fallen asleep. Fortunately, she was breathing normally. I put her in a safe place, then looked at the enemy, Baron of the Ashes. He was glaring at me with distorted eyes, but he wasn't too threatening. Actually, having parasitized McQueen's body was something I was grateful for. Idiot. Why did you swallow someone that didn't even fit you? He was incomplete. It seemed that he dominated about 70% of the vessel, but the remaining 30% was still under Luina's control, all because he swallowed a named character that was too powerful. You already know, don't you? You cannot challenge me with that body. The contract that was entwined in Luina's body still existed, hence he couldn't do any harm to me. This is the end for you, parasite. My voice sounded scornful, which made the bastard furious. His black pupil's savage stare grew darker. The very next moment, he made a move that even I hadn't expected. Whoosh! The Baron escaped from Luina's body, causing a stream of air engulfed in ashes to rise in all directions. It wrapped around me like a great storm, revealing a bizarre face within it. Right. I was stupid. The Baron of the Ashes said in midair, chuckling and laughing. But if it's you, then it would be different. He seeped into me, his particles being absorbed by my body. After a while, a harsh voice rang out from the bottom of my chest. How dare you call me a parasite? You don't even have anything special within you. It was a pretty unpleasant feeling. His essence touched my subconscious, digging up several of my memories and bringing them to the surface. I replied softly. I'll give time for you to think about your decision. You are but a common being. I can easily take control of you. I closed my eyes. Memories of the past, filled with demented malevolence and dark emotions, ran through my veins along with Deculine's pride. Enduring all of it, I asked quietly, Can you handle it? The Baron of the Ashes didn't answer. I could sense his bewilderment, however. I just smiled. Feelings of defeat, jealousy, envy, anger, hatred. Within me was pride that illusions or impulses could never sway. A cry like that is rather elegant, almost a classic. Deculine was by no means a self-defeating person. The Baron of Ashes struggled inside me to get out. I didn't let him. Baron, tell me. Open, open. Who's down there? I was curious. Who did the Baron of Ashes encounter under my consciousness? Was it Kim Woojin, or was it Deculine? The Baron's scream slowly turned into that of a beast. He was smashed to pieces, swept away by Deculine's ego. Pay attention to whoever is inside me. Despite his struggle, my mind remained as calm as a lake. That pit of hell is your grave. Silence permeated my mind. He no longer existed. The Baron of the Ashes had been destroyed. I neither absorbed nor assimilated with him. He was simply crushed by the ego that filled me. Tusk, moron. A being that wasn't me couldn't exist in me. That's how Deculine was. I saw Luina collapsed on the floor. The body that the Baron of Ashes had abandoned was asleep, exhausted. Luina had a nightmare. She dreamed of being so jealous and filled with hatred for someone that she became a monster with a sense of inferiority and defeat. It was as if she became the very person she despised. There were days when Luina was also inflated with her own talent, days when she was proud of her belief that she would resurrect the McQueen family. She had this passion that made her want to leave her mark in the world of magic. It made her want to become a magic professor respected by the Empire and desired to create her own school and light a lamp on the continent. However, it was all interrupted by one man. Luina opened her eyes. Looking around, she grabbed her aching temples. Ugh! The whole floor was covered in ashes, and everything around her was scorched as if a fire recently burned her vicinity. A plaque was buried somewhere near her. This is 23rd floor. External Professor Luina. Only then did she realize it wasn't a dream. As he ruled her, he brought forth vague memories of what she had to go through before. Luina von Schlott McQueen. A voice called her. Surprised, Louisa looked back, finding the very predator of her family, Deucalion. His blue eyes stared at her, his gaze unbreaking, unwavering. This scenery is not a dream. This is what you did with that guy. Yes, I know. Luina bowed her head and sighed. I know everything. Now her mind and body were exhausted. She had no desire anymore. She was just at a loss. She regretted it. Should she have bowed her head from the beginning? Should she have resisted? If she had followed him like any other wizard, she wouldn't have gone through this. I have no intention of running away. I'll turn myself in. It's my fault, Luina said weakly, wiping her tears. That was the best option she could make in this situation. No. However, Deucalion shook his head. He looked down at her as if he found her pathetic. That's not in the contract. Do you enjoy breaking promises? If that's the case, then you have a very disgusting temperament. Luina got furious. What the hell am I supposed to? Remember what I said. Deucalion cut off her words. As her breath grew shaky, he continued to talk. You must become the head professor. No, he closed his eyes and corrected himself. You will become the head professor, no matter what happens. In this situation, is this your fault? Then Deucalion grinned. It was a mockery that was close to humiliation. However, its target wasn't Luina. Of course, I can't say your hands are clean of this incident, but as you may well know, blaming yourself won't change the world. Even if tears come out of your eyes, it wouldn't truly care. It wouldn't even acknowledge them. The sorrows they carried would simply be forgotten. But if you say it's not your fault, it's not your fault. Luina couldn't understand what he meant. I will make it so. Tap, tap, Deucalion walked towards her. His shoes stopped near her, almost touching her knees. Luina. As he called her name, she looked up. Deucalion never abandoned someone it chose to embrace. He reached out to her, who had fallen into disrepair. If you hold my hand. His blue eyes reflected her, allowing her to see how dirty she was, which brought her infinite embarrassment. But Deucalion didn't care. I will never abandon you. His pristine gloves wanted her ash-covered hands. This is the grace of the Deucalion. Whoosh! The dawn broke from beyond the sky, exposed by the tower's window, a ray of light lighting up the darkness around them. Silently, Luina grabbed his hand. Her instincts made her hand move on its own. Deucalion nodded as he helped her stand up. Luina looked at him after as he turned around and walked amid the ashes, causing them to spread like a mist. Their particles mixed with the wind and were blown away. Even in the middle of it all, he remained untouched by dirt as he left. A small question appeared in Luina's mind as she watched him. When did that man's back become so wide? Has he been working hard all this time? Gosh! Thinking she was being ridiculous, Luina just laughed. The day after the so-called terror of the ashes, the tower was still littered with the parasites. Ha ha ha, that's right. Yes, yes. Deucalion grew busy due to the prestigious Jefferson family's sudden visit. They were known to have made a career as the production directors of the Legal Affairs Bureau and the Internal Affairs Bureau from generation to generation. Their grandfather also served as a minister. As expected from you, Professor. Oh, of course. I have no doubts about this report. Luina is, after all, a kind-hearted person. Oh, by the way, this one is Viscount Durin. It is an honor to meet you. I'm Lopez Durin, currently serving as the Deputy Director of the Legal Affairs Bureau. He's a very talented friend. Also, I know this is rude of me, but this one's also your fan, so let me introduce you. Oh, my Tilda, you didn't have to Tilda? Jefferson and Lopez accepted a small gift from the professor. Obviously a sign of sincerity, nothing against the law. The two smiled happily and soon heard his main point. At Lopez's residence, the Deputy Director of Justice made a call after meeting with the professor. "Oh, how are you? It's nothing important. I have someone to introduce to you. Be careful. Come quietly." Deputy Director Lopez gathered some people to help him with his light work using a crystal ball. He then smiled contentedly. "Ha ha ha. To think that I got to meet the professor like this. Is this a revelation from God that the position of director is imminent? I'm really lucky these days." "It is an honor, Professor." "I'm Geron, the head of the Human Resources Department at the Legal Affairs Bureau." "I'm Alberg, Deputy Director of the Department of Home Affairs." "Ha ha, everyone sit down. You're making the professor uncomfortable." A meeting was arranged by Lopez. Geron and Alberg bowed deeply and sat. To them, an unknown professor handed over a report. "Well, this is it." "Yes. Naturally, rumors are already circulating. Once the trial is held, it will end without any problems." But for some reason, the professor didn't seem to like even the notion of having a trial. Geron and Alberg hastily corrected it. "That's right. We too want to do what the professor wants, but there are a few problems. We'll talk to the police on our own." Alberg, Geron, Lopez, Jefferson. The four bureaucrats visited the office of Lilia Primian, the Deputy Director of the Public Security Bureau. "Deputy Director Primian, there's something I'd like to tell you." "We have nothing to talk about. Leave." "Hey, Deputy Director, at least listen to what we have to say." Primian looked like she was looking at some scum, but her expression changed little by little as she listened to them. "If you refuse, the professor will come to you directly. That professor is a hard person to deal with, even for you. Don't you also have some debts to repay?" Contemplating, she nodded. "I had made all the preparations, but I met a reef in an unexpected place." Jefferson made a cautious call with the crystal ball. "Yes, sorry. There was one problem. These days, some officials are needlessly burning a sense of justice." "I am from the law office. He's got talent, but he's really cheeky. This report also needs a thorough investigation. You don't have to take a step forward on your own. We'll soon, oh yes, sorry, his name is Joseph." Joseph was a senior official of the court. He was a child of some lowly nobleman and had a status close to a commoner's, but he became the youngest to pass the legal exams and became a court official with his unique intelligence. However, he didn't have any friends with whom he communicated. Compared to his abilities, his web of connections was poor. Someone like you in such a shabby place. A university professor visited his small house today. He was far from ordinary, and the thought of meeting him alone was already extremely intimidating in itself. "Sit down." He acted as if he were the owner of the house. Joseph accepted his master-like attitude very naturally. He presented a report as soon as he did as instructed. "This is a report on the ashes of the tower." "I see." Joseph gave the contents with a quick glance. "I've already read it." Still, it would be absurd to say that the suspect, Luina, was not at all at fault. A more fair analysis would be, Wren. The professor beckoned to the attendant standing behind him. Wren took a step closer and placed a long, luxurious box on the wooden desk, covering the scratches and dents on its surface. Frowning, Joseph asked, "Is that a bribe?" For a moment, the professor's expression hardened. He took a deep breath and crossed his legs, those series of gestures putting pressure on his prey. "You're pretty rude." "I am just being honest. You should distinguish between being straightforward and being honest, shouldn't you?" Joseph bowed his head silently, his shoulders trembling involuntarily. It was an animal-like instinct. He was rumored to be upright in court, but it was strangely difficult to meet this professor's eyes. "I apologize, but what is this if not a bribe, an opportunity?" "An opportunity?" "Right. A chance to be one of my people." The professor tapped the report. "I wonder if your attitude to look into this report is the problem." "No, a more definitive investigation is needed. The on-site investigation was not fair, and most importantly, Professor Luina wasn't even interrogated." "To be so fair," the professor cut him off. "You shouldn't have made a family." Joseph's eyes widened. The professor buried himself in the chair without expression as his twisted gaze glared at him. I heard your son just turned 6. So, is love fun? Joseph said nothing. His breathing grew rougher. Does a righteous man like you love your children, your wife, and others equally? Involuntarily, he looked at the door to his bedroom where his wife and children were waiting. The professor continued. I know, you are different and fair, unlike other rotten officials. So I'll say it again, this is an opportunity, not a bribe. His eyes scanned him up and down, his clenched fists standing out. You will know. Justice that starts from below is of no use. His mouth remained firmly shut, but he could read everything from the wrinkles on his face. Then see you next time. The professor stood up. Joseph's wife and child, who heard it, went out and bid him farewell. Giving them a faint smile, he walked out of the house. After that, he got into the car parked outside. Did he take it? De Killane waited for a while before asking Wren that question. Wren closed his eyes and nodded, his 5 senses peering into Joseph's house. Yes, he's opened the box and his wife saw its contents. Ah, then he'll accept it. People like him would never accept money. No, even if he did, he wouldn't use it. Hence, he gave the child a gift instead. Imperial Academy admission ticket, lifetime Imperial Academy scholarship. The two of them are arguing right now. Don't you know what it's like to enter the Imperial Academy? It's a place where we can't go even if we have money. Let me think about it. What is there to think about? Our child can be there too. It seems it's only a matter of time. Okay. De Killane nodded. If it wasn't money or jewelry, people found it surprisingly easy to accept gifts, especially if it was a privilege related to children. This was my way of covering the case while also making connections. Joseph was an accidentally found treasure. The brilliance of the man of great wealth that he gave off was quite special. Let's go. As you wish. The vehicle started smoothly and moved according to Wren's driving. There was no trial that I was worried about. The Justice Bureau, the Home Affairs Bureau, and the Public Security Bureau stamped investigation complete on the report written by De Killane, his subordinate professor, and a debutante, and all relevant witnesses took a stance favorable to Luina. It ended with the action of a parasitic spirit called the Baron of Ashes. Imperial magic instructor eliminated the incident at the university tower has been amended. But an impeccable mental power is also included in the qualifications of the Emperor's magic educator. Hence, Luina von Schlott-McQueen has been stripped of her position. This entire predicament only cost her her magic educator position, and a sincere apology to the debutantes who suffered because of her. Of course, the fact that there were no fatalities was a major factor. Ha ha. Luina laughed bitterly and looked up at her own office. 47th floor. Professor Luina's office somehow, after fighting to the end with the Baron of the Ashes and eventually being swallowed up, she became a do-it-yourself professor, and her office rose 25 floors. So this is politics. It was probably thanks to De Killane. Indeed, its magnificence was admirable. Luina looked around the 47th floor. It was a much more spacious and neat office compared to the one on the 23rd floor. She sat behind her desk and grabbed a fountain pen to reply to the letter of the imperial family. Thinking about how to begin, she suddenly came across the perfect opening. 5 years. 5 years came to mind. Why? It was a clause in their contract that had been questionable from the time it was created. 5 years. Why was it not 1 year, not 10 years, not a lifetime, but 5 years? He stayed home for a week. Luina engrossed herself in her writing. De Killane staying at home was a pretty unusual event, so Luina knew about that too. According to many rumors, he has changed since then. If so, were there any shocking events during that week? No, even if it's not shocking, what transpired throughout that duration? She grew genuinely curious. What kind of incident caused that obsessive De Killane to take multiple leaves, ignoring all his schedules for a week? At that moment, a single word flashed through Luina's mind. No way. Deadline. She tapped the words scribbled on the paper with the fountain pen in her hand. If it was an incurable disease, the period of 5 years was reasonable. That would also open up the probability of a person's personality suddenly changing. Anyone, if their death wasn't far away. No, that's nonsense. Luina laughed and put the paper in the drawer. Chapter 68. Sorting things out too. Pitter-patter. Snow fell from the skies, forming a thick layer of it on the ground as they accumulated, covering her vicinity entirely in white. Pitter-patter, winter here was eternal. The snow that fell never melted either. Regardless, she waited. Would this coldness melt away in the distant future? If she waited and held on until the snow became water for the land, would it ever sprout? No, she doubted it. It was no different from her situation. She often found herself wondering if spring would ever come to her. Julie's life began with death. She gained life at the price of her mother's, after all. That was the first ever sin she committed when she was born into this world. Wow. Freyden's resistance was always held in gelid winter. The small child stared blankly at the knight's swordsmanship in the pure white hall. The knights brandished their swords as they sweated, but among them her father and brother were the best. She was proud of them. They were beautiful. It looked like a play from a distance, and from close up it looked like a dance. At that moment, her older brother, finishing his match, looked back at her, sweat dripping from him, suddenly freezing like jewels. Julie avoided his gaze. Zeit never spoke to Julie first. Everyone in their family was like that. Even though there was nothing wrong with her, they always drew an invisible line. Julie. However, that day was an exception. Her elder brother looked at her with a melancholic smile for reasons she couldn't decipher. Young Julie faced him with wide-open eyes. Why, yes, brother. Would you like to wield a sword, too? Yes. Her dream of being a knight was etched deep in her heart from then on. Knights served their masters. They became the swords that cut every enemy before them. They protected their subjects and the country while staying true to their beliefs. There was no room for her in it. Yet, despite taking away her mother from her family, despite her existence itself being a sin, she still dreamed of it, no matter how long and distant it was. Julie opened her eyes. The morning sky was dark, and there was a throbbing pain in her heart. Knock, knock. Hearing a knock on the door, Julie got up from her bed. The aching pain spread all over her body, but with a little patience, she knew it'd go away. Your bath is ready. The servant outside said, Okay. Julie entered the bathroom and looked at the mirror blankly. Staring at herself, she remembered her promise to him. If you can't become the guardian knight within that time, we might have to get married after all. So don't get stuck in one place. Now, there wasn't much time left. Defalum Forest near Hadecane on the western part of the Empire. Side quest: support for demon purification. Store currency +2 these days. The concentration of mana had increased in some areas, causing demon-related monsters such as gargoyles to appear. Today, I was tasked to suppress and purify one of those locations as part of a quest requested by the cathedral and accepted by the tower. Initially, I smashed all the beasts and foes that got in my way and moved forward, but at some point, I found an area dotted with death variables, covering it with the most vivid red I had ever seen. My intuition told me that if I went in there, my death would be inevitable. The danger it posed was far from ordinary. The villain's fate worked according to my skills. A trap prepared by just a few goblins wouldn't even get caught by its radar. But this forest was far from the threat such low-class monsters could pose against me. On the other side, an enemy that I couldn't overcome was lurking. Of course, if my opponent were a demon, I would grow stronger. However, there was a limit to that since the concentration of mana here was too thin. This forest wasn't as rich in mana as the Kreba's Canyon or the Devil's Barrier. What's going on, Professor? A blonde priest asked, following my lead. Terp. I stood still and searched for a suitable excuse to run away without looking scared. Let's go back. I turned around without saying a word, causing Terp to look perplexed. But we haven't even reached the source yet. We've done enough scouting and analysis. Let's do the rest next time. You must always prepare ahead of time for anything to avoid being in danger. I calmly spoke as I walked. We can finish it quickly, but I want to teach you the method of getting rid of demons cautiously. Terp nodded. After about 30 minutes, we finally reached the forest entrance where Uriel and my vassals were waiting. Her puffed cheeks displayed her anger. Are you done? Uriel asked. Terp shook his head. We just scouted ahead today and decided to finish the task at hand later. She quickly turned her head and glared at me upon hearing his reply. Ignoring her, I got into the car. Terp bowed. "Thank you for your hard work, Uriel." "You're welcome, priest. Thank you as well." Uriel also got in quickly. As soon as she took a seat, she yelled, Why couldn't I?" "Be quiet. You didn't even make it to the end. It wouldn't have been dangerous. The eldest daughter of the Eucline family and the Deputy Lord of Hadecane wanted to accompany me for today's purification. However, I had no intention of putting her on the battlefield. You'd only be a hindrance. I'm also a Eucline, you know. I'm stronger against demonic entities." That wasn't true. Eucline blood didn't flow in her veins. Don't be stupid. The ones in charge don't stay on the front lines. In the future, if you ever step into any war zone, I'll assume our promise doesn't exist in the first place. You've been warned. Uriel's expression hardened. "Are you serious?" She looked at me while grinding her teeth. "You've been pretending to be a great brother lately, but today, you decided to humiliate me in front of our vassals. How will I be able to look at them now?" Uriel was really looking forward to this day. To assert her legitimacy to our subjects, she even brought it was also happening near the territory of Eucline, so she probably felt a sense of responsibility. Regardless, I ignored her wishes. I didn't allow her to follow, causing her to feel shame in front of our villains. "Uriel." "What?" "Uriel." "What?" My face hardened. "Uriel. Gosh, what is it, sir?" Uriel pouted, her voice trembling. However, this time I couldn't back down. "Stop acting like a child. Don't be stubborn. Everything I was doing was for her. Don't make a scene. You should know better without me having to point out your behavior. How long do you plan to act like a child?" Uriel knew the traditions of the Eucline family. Perhaps the reason for her current actions was to prove to the vassals that the tradition had been passed on to her. "Act according to your position. Show the dignity our estate deserves." Uriel didn't answer, leaning silently against the window instead. Her hair obscured her face, but she looked like she was about to cry. Her tiny shoulders were shaking and her breathing was ragged. "Let's go to the Isle of Wizard's Wealth. I have work to do today." I didn't talk to Uriel, Defalem Forest. "Did he leave?" "Did he leave?" asked Jarek, sharpening his dagger while holding his breath amid the long coniferous woods. He was a handsome man with his long black hair tied behind his back and was nicknamed Multi-Personality, which didn't suit him. "Did he really leave?" "Yes, he did." Arlos nodded. Jarek asked again, "Did he leave, for real?" "Yes." "Really?" "I said he did, son of a bitch." "Oh, Tilda, no way, Tilda." Only when she cursed did he seem convinced. Like this, each of the ashes had a screw loosened. Did he notice? "Yeah, you moron, how could he not? You radiated so much murderous aura." "Dekilline's a coward, huh? I did it to lure him in." Arlos just smiled. She actually seemed to understand why Dekilline avoided Jarek. His voice played in her head. "You don't avoid excrements because you're afraid of it, but because they're disgusting and dirty." That was what he most likely thought. "Man, Tilda, this is annoying." Tilda." Jarek groaned and slammed the back of his head against a tree. "Do you even have any reason to aim for Dekilline?" "Huh? You want to kill him just because he's famous, right?" Jarek naively tilted his head. He then giggled. "Well, there's more to it than that. I have a huge grudge against the Eucline family. They submerged our village, after all." He tapped his forehead with his finger. "As you probably already know, even at this moment, there are a lot of people talking in my head. All of them are members of my family who died then." The pathology of his multiple personalities was ultimately due to the Eucline family. If so, then he had a pretty good reason. "What about you, Arlos?" Jarek then asked. "I don't. In fact, I have no intention of killing him." Of course, there was that incident with him, but she held no grudge against him. Dekilline was like a beehive. His destruction would cause bigger problems. Hence, she rejected the notion of turning the entire Eucline family into an enemy. "Why? Didn't you say your parents were also wizards, Arlos?" "Maybe they had a grudge against them." "Shut up. Her parents died before she was even 3 years old. She didn't know why, and she didn't want to know. Who knows, Dekilline might have killed them. He was just a child back then. Stop spouting nonsense and shut up." "I mean..." Arlos grabbed Jarek's collar and stared at him as if she was going to kill him. "If you keep talking like that, I will tear up your insides and kill you." Oh, I'm sorry, Tilda, please understand, Tilda, I'm just pissed since Dechilene suddenly flew off. If you understand, then begin preparing it. She let go of his neck. Their goal wasn't to ambush Dechilene in the first place. They just happened to have a mission to carry out around the same area. However, accidentally hearing the news that Dechilene was coming, the guys who were currently teaming up with Arlos, including Jarek and Glipper, got excited. Anyway, I will definitely kill Dechilene. Jarek laughed softly and leaned against a tree. My family is hoping for that. Right, brother? Yes, brother, they are. You know how painful it was when I drowned. Yeah, I do. Father also said, ignoring the bizarre conversation he had with himself, Arlos, read the newspaper. Symposium problem #6. Will it finally be solved by head Professor Dechilene? The place of proof. Red Garnet Adventure Team's tertiary settlement, the Principality of Urin. Now, read it, everyone. Inside the house she was staying in with the children, Gaincha opened the Adventurer exam pamphlet. Get ready for the 133rd Adventurers test. The Adventurers Guild awaits talented challengers on page 37. A Q and a with Guild Master Gohal. Are you curious about the ranking of adventurers these days? Check out page 47. Carlos, Leo, and Leah read its contents while eating ice cream. While looking at their faces, Gaincha noticed Leah's increase in height. Wow, Leah's growing up quickly. Your skeletal structure is definitely perfect for adventurers. Not too thick, but not too fragile either. You have a very strong body. She touched Leah's body all over, causing her to feel ticklish and to push her away. Ah, ha ha, stop, ha ha ha. I think you'll be taller than Rayleigh in 3 more months. Damn, why drag me into your conversation? Rayleigh, an adventurer eating chips on the couch, clicked her tongue. She turned her attention to the 2 other children. Carlos, Leo, you guys are growing a bit slower, huh? Leah is already 160 cm. What are you guys doing? Their faces scrunched up, their pride seemingly hurt. Leah is 2 years older than us. That's why she's growing faster. That's true. In the end, you'll get bigger. It's all genes. How are the Freyden these days, Rayleigh? Gaincha asked. Julie's cousin, Rayleigh, was no different from an imperial informant. Almost all rumors reached her ears. She shrugged. I don't know. There's no news about them these days. Then again, Knight Julie seems to have reconciled with her fiancé. She reconciled with Professor Dechilene. Yes, they're not fighting at least. What? Gaincha's eyes widened. However, as she was about to ask a pretty stupid question, Leah suddenly screamed at the top of her lungs. The 2 of them are reconciling? Gaincha and Rayleigh both looked at her at the same time, finding her looking as if a hammer just hit the back of her head. Rayleigh chuckled. Now that she had started reading newspapers these days, she seemed to have grown interested in these rumors. Yeah. That's what rumor says. Why? No way. What do you mean? It can't be. However, her reaction was much more turbulent than expected. It couldn't be how, why, no, she mumbled those words incomprehensibly, then ran back to her room. What's wrong with her? Did she eat something wrong? The 2 grown-ups just smirked. Nice, Tilda, then we'll get her ice cream too. The moment Carlos and Leo were about to steal her dessert, Leah's door opened. Put it down, you idiots. Give it to me. That's mine. She charged in and headed back into her room after retrieving it. The grand hall on the 5th floor of Medjison had been designated as the place of proof of the symposium question number 6's resolution presented by Dechilene. The event, which would make or break his thesis, was held in such a magnificent place. Wow, 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 wow. Ephraim was lucky enough to be one of the few that could attend it. There were a lot of famous wizards around her. The jury alone was composed of 2 ethereal-ranked mages, Rogerio and Jindalf. There were also Luina, Becca, and Ihelm. Even Her Majesty's younger brother, Credo, was present. Why's he seated next to a cat? In the seat next to him, a peculiar red feline was lying and yawning. It's cute. Be quiet, Ephraim. You're embarrassing. Sylvia said. Ephraim stared at her. Their tickets were their reward for their contribution in solving the Baron of Ash's case. Huh, hey. You're Ephraim, right? At that moment they heard a voice familiar to Ephraim. The 2 debutantes both tracked down its source. Oh, aren't you the professor's younger sister? Their eyes landed on Uriel, whom she met by chance before. Uriel smiled. Yup, long time no see. Thanks to you I got a penalty point. Ephraim's cheeks puffed. Uriel simply shrugged. Really, I'm sorry, I got caught too, you know. How about we call it even? That ugh. Hello. Sylvia pushed Ephraim away. Giving her a soft smile, she greeted Uriel politely. Nice to meet you. I am Sylvia. A gentle yet polite introduction. Uriel nodded awkwardly. Yeah, I know. You are Sylvia of Iliade? Yes. Sylvia's eyes, looking at Uriel, moved and gazed somewhere else. Ephraim did the same. She stood out above all else. Setting aside her white hair, eyes, and beautiful appearance, she was the only knight in a place filled with wizards. Deucalion's fiancée, Julie. She received a special invitation. Wearing a robe over her light armor, she delightfully approached Uriel upon finding her. How have you been, Uriel? Hello? She twisted her lip upward. Julie seemed to be preparing to say something, but Uriel turned her head as if she didn't want to talk to her. Hence, she just smiled bitterly and sat down. We will now turn off the lights. The room dimmed not long after. The place of proof of the symposium's sixth question, which has remained unanswered for 15 years, shall now begin. Although not as vast as its name suggested, the Grand Hall was the most honorable place to discuss magical science. The curtain fell on the podium on the other side. Sigh. Ephraim looked at Sylvia, who seemed tense. What are you doing? She was acting weird. When she didn't answer, she followed her laser-like gaze, finding a white-haired person, Julie, Chapter 69. 30 minutes ago, Symposium Evaluator's waiting room. Luina Unnai, is this answer real? The ethereal-ranked wizard, Rose Rio, asked out of suspicion. Luina shrugged. What do you mean? Did Deucalion really write this answer? Rose Rio was an ethereal-level mage with impressive short pink hair, but she was actually younger than her, hence why she called Luina Unnai. She was a support and healing genius who only stayed in the magic tower for 6 months, climbed up to the Isle of Wizards' wealth afterward, and reached the ethereal rank at 25 years old. Yeah, Deucalion wrote it himself. Rose Rio still couldn't believe it. Jindalf, sitting quietly in another chair, asked, Really? I'm suspicious of Deucalion's nature. I know his situation, after all. Jindalf, who was now in his 70s, was the personification of old wizards in fairy tales. He wore round glasses and had long gray hair and a beard. No, this bothers me more than that. Rose Rio pointed to the last part of Deucalion's theorem. In addition, 48 runes were successfully interpreted and organized, but they were not published since they didn't fit the topic. Is this for real? He said he interpreted several runes. That's got to be a lie. Luina laughed bitterly. I already took a look at his interpretation paper. I even saw it recited. Deucalion had shown her some of the rune interpretation paper. Of course, they might think he was wrong, but it was surprisingly easy to tell whether it was correct or not. He had to memorize the pronunciation. The runic language itself was imbued with magic, so just speaking it correctly would consume mana. That guy, Deucalion, has linguistic talent. I heard he speaks 10 languages. Huh, really? I can't bring myself to believe that. Rose Rio's eyes remained squinted as Jindalf chuckled, stroking his beard. Rose, feel free to think about it as you deem fitting, Tilda. In fact, runes weren't even her current priority. The 5-year period Deucalion demanded was still stuck in her head. It can't be right. There isn't a disease that can't be cured even with Eucline's financial and political power. Even after repeating that in her mind, she couldn't think of any other way to explain it. I promised, didn't I? 5 years. You will not be my stumbling block, and I will not be your stumbling block. Why did he promise 5 years? Aren't you 4 years younger than me? You still can grow a lot, so time is definitely on your side. Why did he say that? It doesn't make sense. Time was definitely on his side. If it were the usual arrogant Deucalion, no, even if it weren't, he wouldn't say things like time is on your side while solving the symposium problem. The honor and feat of interpreting the runes would shine brighter as time went by. Luina soon shook her head, however. Phew, what does it matter? Whenever she remembered all that Deucalion did to her in the past, her body still trembled. Deep inside, her hatred for him continued to burn like embers. However, no matter if she liked it or not, Luina was a thorough wizard. She was accustomed to the law of the jungle and was an extremely rational animal. Therefore, rather than burning with passion, she calmly set herself up to achieve her true goal, the McQueen's magic vision, the title of head professor. She didn't care about anything else other than that. She would willingly bury the humiliation, personal feelings, and family resentment she suffered from him for those objectives. Besides, as Deculline, she'd be free in 5 years anyway. Is he going to release this 48 runes interpretations today as well? Rose Rio asked. Before Luna could answer, she continued with a sigh. In any case, let's head out now. She created wind and rolled the curtains in the waiting room. Behind it stood the short chairman like a statue. Ahaha. Receiving Rose Rio and Jindalf's gazes, she laughed and, clenching her fists, asked, Deculline has the interpretation of 48 runes. Did he really interpret 48 runes? Is he going to reveal it today? It'll be a mess. You'll have to ask him since he's the only one who can answer that, Chairman. No, this is not the time. The chairman's eyes filled up with mischief, her expression screaming, I'm going to spread the word right away. Watching the chairman run away, Rose Rio burst out laughing. That unnigh doesn't change, Tilda. Your accent is still noticeable. Me? What do you mean? I'm speaking using the standard accent. Rose Rio's hometown was Rococo, which was on the outskirts of the empire. It was a rural area famous for its strong accent. Actually, yours isn't that strong. When I first went to Rococo, I thought I was in a different country, Tilda. What? Wow, your regionalism is too strong. I didn't think you were this type. For your information, it's not that different. Say bullfight, bullfight. Rose Rio stayed quiet. Asterisk, the capacity of the Grand Hall was 400 people. Although it was small for its awe-inspiring name, it was still more than good enough to prove the solution of the symposium. Actually, the word grand in its name itself wasn't wrong. About 300 years ago, when the designer and archmage of the Isle of Wizards' Wealth, Loplin, built the Medjisen, this was the widest hall. It had become the place of culture and tradition since the beginning of the floating island. How? How? Perhaps that was why Alan was now showing symptoms of anxiety disorder. Calm down. Yes, yes, yes. He couldn't stay still even while in his seat. He clenched his left hand around his trembling right hand, causing the tremor to spread throughout his body like some kind of gym nerd. Seeing him like that, I felt like Alan was impressive. His original personality was nothing like that. His acting was very natural. Phew, hic, no hic. This is going to be a problem. Why am I getting hiccups now? I silently looked at my rune interpretation summary. A compilation of the 48 different rune interpretations, in addition to the 14 runes that had been interpreted in the magical world. I thought about making it public, but I decided against it since it was impossible to predict what kind of impact that would make. It would be better to keep it in my head for now. Misuse of it could lead to an atomic bomb-level disaster like the Manhattan Project, after all. PFFF. But it was really weird. When I looked at this font, I smiled involuntarily. Maybe it was because it reminded me of a voice, almost like I was experiencing a hallucination. Kim Woo-jin? Look at this. Memories of the past played back like a faded film. It's a rune that is being conceived by the setting team. Did they mix Hebrew and Latin? She put her hands together under her chin as she acted as cute as usual. Now, Woo-jin, you just need to clean it up. Try other fonts, too. Make it look a little old. While talking about its setting, her gaze on me felt sincere and clear. Woo-jin, you look handsome when you are concentrating. Her name was Yuli. Kim Woo-jin's memories remained in me. What? If that's the case, I'm way out of your league. However, her voice gradually faded. Was it because time had passed? It felt like I could forget about her now. BRRRR. Alan's vibrating sound brought me to reality. What was he, an alarm clock? Alan, what about the slab of stone? Here, it's here. Alan handed me the slate. It was a type of intermediary in which a large mana stone was processed into a slab and then engraved with runes. Knock, knock. Finally, the knock came, indicating that the time had come. Let's go. Alan got up, trembling, and went out of the waiting room with me. Follow me. We followed the guide and stood on the stage of the hall with the curtains lowered. It will start soon. There's only two of you? Yes. Why, yes. Behind me was a large blackboard and chalk. The hall was 30 years old, so its fixtures had a classic feel to them. Professor de Killeen of the Imperial University Magic Tower will now defend his answer to Symposium question number 6. The voice of the moderator resonated in the hall. As expected from the Isle of Wizards' Wealth, not a single noise could be heard. Swoosh! Beyond the opening curtains was the Grand Hall's audience area, which had been filled to maximum capacity. Nevertheless, I immediately noticed one person, Julie. I could find her instantly, no matter where she was or what kind of crowd she was buried in. It was due to the affection that became part of my nature. The judges for today's proof were ethereal-ranked Rose Rio and Jindalf, monarch-cranked Luina, and Astal, an addict. I wasn't nervous at all. As I once said, the attention and stares that were pouring on me felt rather proper. Such was the effect of very natural elitism. "Nice to meet you," I said calmly. "I'm Head Professor de Killeen. I will now begin discussing my answer for Symposium Problem 6, Proof of Runes." De Killeen's theorem was carried out step by step, and the Grand Hall watched him in a quiet atmosphere. A document titled De Killeen's Theorem was distributed to all attendees. If I were to interpret the inscription in question 6, that is, the runes, the following sentences are revealed. Where there is light and will, there is God. God hid out of fear of human worship. About half of the interpretation of this inscription had already been achieved by Roughton, a monarch-cranked wizard, along with the linguist Frange, leaving nothing special about my discussion regarding it. However, past that was where my main point began. Get rid of the second sentence here. It's useless. De Killeen boldly deleted the second sentence. Only the 3 runes corresponding to light, will, and God in the first sentence serve as a magic circuit, and the rest are just materials for combination. Where there is light and will, there is God. Hebrew Aleph, Hebrew Yod Theta, Hebrew Pe, Hebrew He, Hebrew Shin, Hebrew Yod Phi, Hebrew Shin, Hebrew Aleph, Hebrew Vav, Hebrew Resh, Hebrew Vav, Hebrew Mem, Hebrew Lamed, Hebrew Ket Zeta. Hebrew Yod, Hebrew Shin, the first sentence hovered in the air. Although the runic language seemed to reject the interpretation itself, I insisted on it. The first step in deciphering these runes is segmentation. De Killeen shredded the runes. The entire sentence scattered in the air, forming several pieces. The first sentence has a total of 13 syllables, but there are 45 segments in those 13 syllables as well. It was similar to how the syllable hib was segmented into 3 phonemes, H, I, and B. Runes were still languages, after all. But the number of combinations of these 45 segments is nearly innumerable, reaching at least 3,923,023,104,000, possibly more. 3,923,023,104,000 or more. But there is a second process in that number. It's about discovering and identifying the most meaningful rune combinations among them. The process is as follows. From then on, de Killeen's theorem entered a field that ordinary people couldn't understand. For almost 2 hours, countless combinations of runes unfolded like waves, which then turned into a certain shape, forming a magic formula. It was a job that required a lot of effort and time. That was the result of breaking through a certain limit after combining understanding with the setting knowledge in the head of game designer Kim Woojin. Now, take a close look at this. If he summarized all of the above in 2 sentences, the runes were disassembled, and a magic circle was created from that combination. However, it's very different from the standard magic circle of modern times. Rose Rio asked, "Is that combination certain? If the number of branches is that large, other combinations are also possible, aren't they?" Her voice had a strong accent. Runes can be considered the magic of language itself. Think of it as a proverb that gives strength to your voice. She was becoming a bit bothersome, but de Killeen continued talking without showing any emotion. I only selected combinations that are easy for humans to pronounce, because they are oral rather than abdominal, peritonal, and cerebral. More than the difficulty of pronouncing the standard language for Rose Rio, there were clearly structures that humans couldn't even voice out. Dequillin dug into that point. Rose Rio was convinced, and Dequillin gestured at Alan through a glance. Alan ran and handed him the magic slab. Dequillin placed his hand on it. Now, let me demonstrate the answer. At that moment, a quiet heat dawned upon the stillness of the grand hall. Excitement engulfed everyone's eyes. Dequillin closed his eyes. In that state, he carefully repeated the process demonstrated today. He disassembled the runes, summarized the rune combination formula, reconstructed the combination into a magic circle, and finally, he mumbled an unknown rune. Where there was light and will, there was God. Through that single sentence, woo-wash, a blue light rose from the slab. The wind blew as an apparition appeared, filling the grand hall with unidentified scenery. It depicted the past where runes were very common. The scene moved slowly as if borrowing a human eye. The white marble floor, the beautiful statue, a priest kneeling in the middle of the temple. After a while, the priest opened his mouth, putting his hands together as if in prayer. A beautiful sound rang out, its gentleness spreading throughout the hall. Everyone closed their eyes to focus their attention on their ears. The divine tone itself, unfortunately, did not last long. It just burned like a match and then faded away. The sound that rang like a low tide was swept away by a high tide of silence. Dequillin then continued. This inscription was a hymn to the gods. It was magic that had already been lost, and a fragment of the past known as the Age of the Gods. Some might mistake it for nothing but a hymn at first glance, but the archaeological value of its entirety was immense, and the ideas that came from that answer would lead to other magical inventions. The proof is over. Dequillin finished his theorem like that. The auditorium was quiet, the feeling of runes lingering around every person like drizzle. Judge Jindalf asked, "That's impressive. But is this the end?" There is a paragraph at the end saying that other runes were interpreted and compiled into a summary. Jindalf remained subtle, but Rose Rio decided to be upfront. Dequillin understood what she meant, but he shook his head. "I will not reveal the interpretation paper." Do you refuse to reveal the interpretation paper, or is it that you don't have it?" Rose Rio asked. Dequillin looked at her sternly and pulled out the documents from his inner pocket. "This is the interpretation paper of 48 runes. This is the only original in the world, and I made no copies of it." Then the grand hall swelled with a small commotion. Dequillin looked into the interpretation paper and muttered softly. Hebrew Aleph, Hebrew Tav, Hebrew He, Hebrew Lamed, Hebrew Aleph, Hebrew Kaf, Hebrew Lamed, Hebrew Mem. The sound of runes echoed through the space around him. Most of his mana was consumed just by reciting 3 words, but it would be enough to prove its content. "I interpreted many runes that remain unknown to the magical world." Dequillin's words stopped abruptly, looking at the document he made. His expression seemed to wriggle with worry. "Since they don't fit the topic, and they can be misused if I were to reveal any more than this." In an instant, a fire broke out, its creator being Dequillin, and transferred to the rune interpretation summary held in his hand. "I will destroy it here." Flames engulfed the document, causing it to cry out with a strange sound. The runes written in it resonated with the magic. Just like that, the research that Dequillin had been working on for about 3 years turned into ashes swept away by the wind. "Oh!" The grand hall grew speechless. The surprised wizard's mouth sank more heavily than any commotion, but Dequillin, after cleaning the mess he left behind, only said, "Now let's start the Q&A." No one asked questions. Player, Yulia level, 7 mana. 4,507 mana rating, rank 4 talent type, origin attributes, 3 personality, 7 appearance, BLONDE Japanese symbol RED eyes. Yulia was lying on an empty bed, contemplating her own identity. Blue letters fluttered in the air, displaying information about her character, including her levels and attributes under the category called player. It was a system that only Leah could see. She didn't know why she came to this world. She knew neither the process nor the culprit of this phenomenon. She didn't even know their ultimate motive. There was no way she would, considering this phenomenon itself was far beyond science. As the lightning at night heated the entire company building, she closed her eyes once and then opened them. She just became a player in the game. It was something she had read in novels, but she didn't struggle like the main characters. Leah was by nature very adaptable and talented, and her appearance was the same as the original Yulia, although she was a bit prettier. Hence, it wasn't difficult for her to adjust to her new life. The problem was her age and starting point. She began at the Archipelago Sea, which was far from the game's main quest. At 14 years old, she was 13 years younger than her actual age. Fortunately, her body had grown rapidly, and her unique survivability and spirit of improvement allowed her to reach Mana rating level 4, but reconciliation? Nonsense. Dekylline. She didn't know what kind of trickery it was, but the villain, whom she left alone since she couldn't react with her current body, reconciled with Julie. She still couldn't believe it. Leah bit her nails. Julie and Dekylline had an irreconcilable relationship. Although they were opposites, her final puzzle was him. The game system itself was built that way. The core of Julie's story, a named character, was, in the end, Dekylline. She suffered endlessly from Dekylline, overcame her scars, and bloomed desperately as a flower of eternal winter. Hence, reconciliation could never happen. No, it was only when she had a conflict with Dekylline that Julie would be able to overcome her own injury. Man, it's chaos beyond chaos. Of course, Leah had some doubts. Just as she became a player herself, wouldn't Dekylline be a player as well? According to the novels she read, people from reality often possessed villains. No way. That was nonsensical. Dekylline's actions, which Leah read in newspapers, were by no means at a level that the player could do. Dekylline was too damn hard to play in the first place. Tusk. But again, whenever she thought of Dekylline, he reminded her of that guy. Kim Woojin, his role model. When she first heard that from the author, she was jealous, and there were many complaints about why they did it without Woojin's permission, but the Dekylline she saw in the photo definitely resembled him. Of course, only in appearance. He must be fine. Leah laughed lightly. He was brittle, indecisive, and fragile, but that only showed how delicate and wounded he was. Even though they broke up without being able to be together until the end, he remained by her side as her friend. But, at least, I wish you weren't here. No matter how much she missed him, this world didn't suit him. He was far too childish, so she thought she alone was enough for this kind of hardship. Even though I miss you sometimes. Leah looked out the window. Beyond that, the daily life of the Principality of Yurin was tumbling. Not bad. Day by day, Kim Woojin aside, she was getting farther away from Dekylline, but she had the characteristic of being an adventurer. Adventurer. Rating, unique. Description, gains the qualities of a natural adventurer. The more one wanders the continent, the higher their growth rate. One's mana and stamina increase according to the number of areas they have explored. Thanks to this, her growth was rather steep, and above all, the princess named Maho lurked in Yurin. Her first goal was to get her quest from her. Sigh. After brushing her thoughts away, Leah looked around her, then moved and pulled out the wooden barrel she had hidden under her desk. When you're sad, look at the money box. Occasionally, she received pocket money from Gaincha or earned it by doing chores and errands secretly. After she crossed over from the archipelago to the continent, she earned about 5,000 elnies per month, but unfortunately, she couldn't collect all of them. She sometimes lost her temper, wasting her elnies on gummy candy and chocolate. Her character's personality was so childish. Regardless, although she had spent a lot of money, she had also saved quite a lot. Hoo. Leah took out the money box and looked at its contents. 10 bundles of 50 10 elni bills, a bundle of 50 100 elni bills, 3 silver coins, and 5 copper coins she found along the way. A total of 10,035 elnis, 10 million Korean won. This is swelling up. Yes. First of all, after collecting 30,000 elnis and investing in the redevelopment of Yurin, her savings would grow larger again through real estate and gambling. Giggle. Leah, who had been smiling slyly, suddenly looked innocent again, blinking emptily. Should I buy some sweets? I think it'll be fine since I have a lot of money. She blankly grabbed the 3 silver coins. Oh no! But she immediately came to her senses and put it down. That occurrence always surprised her. It might be perhaps because of her personality, but whenever she was just a bit negligent, she recklessly pulled out and wasted money. Gather money, right arrow, watch it happily, right arrow, a little carelessness, right arrow, hey. I have a lot of money, right arrow, buying some sweets, should be okay, right arrow, I'll grab chocolate and ice cream since I'm already here. That was the flow of her thoughts. That was especially the case with chocolate, a very expensive snack in this world. Knock, knock. She then heard sounds coming from outside her room. Leah immediately hid her money box. The Red Garnet Adventure team had a lot of debt, so if they found her stash, they'd act like a mother stealing her children's New Year's allowance money while saying things like, "I'll give it to you later, leave it to me, Tilda." "Who is it?" Leah opened the door, speaking as brightly as possible. Chapter 70. Why did he burn it? I just can't seem to understand his actions. Wouldn't he have a meaning in his own way? Judges Rose Rio, Jindalf, and the chairman were in the waiting room having a discussion. Their topic was still D'Killine's sudden action. The runes that D'Killine muttered were 3 sentences, right? Does that mean he used a total of 18 runes? Did you clearly feel the surge of magic? Of course, 48 might be an exaggeration from D'Killine, but the interpretation of 18 new runes was a sufficient achievement. D'Killine burned that achievement himself. It was strange. The D'Killine, known to Rose Rio, the magic world, became a fair wizard who didn't boast of his own research. Not empathic, but fair. Isn't it because he thought there would be a problem if the rune interpretation were revealed to the ashes? Rose Rio was taken aback by the chairman's unfiltered words. I mean, well, I heard those bastards had implanted spies even in the Isle of Wizards' Wealth these days. I know. Those mean bastards. Because of them the runes had to be burned? Ahem. Oh yes, that's right, Chairman. Your words are too precipitous. Among them, amid a conversation, Luna kept to herself, deep in serious thoughts. Why did D'Killine destroy his own research with his own hands? She reconstructed the case with her own wisdom and intelligence. Perhaps he was trying to find a cure or even just a clue to his disease in the runic language, hoping for an ancient power that transcended modern magic. However, he found no healing miracles in the rune language, unlike the possibility of misuse, which he found innumerable. Hence, he destroyed it on his own without any regrets. No achievement would be able to give him any glory right now, at that moment. Slam. The door opened and D'Killine appeared. Startled, Rose Rio and the chairman immediately changed the subject of their conversation. D'Killine looked at Jindalf among them. Elder Jindalf? HM. D'Killine, did you just call me? Jindalf's wrinkled eyes became round. Yes, there's something I want to ask you. Me? Is it possible? It is, but... Jindalf left with D'Killine. Luna stared intently at the door the two of them just exited into. She wasn't a curiosity seeker, but she was so curious about this case her whole body was itching. The chairman looked at her and smiled. Professor Luna is just like me. Luna narrowed her eyes at her, finding the notion ridiculous. No, I'm different from you, Chairman. How so? Luna leaned against the couch without a word. At that moment, the chairman's curiosity seeker antenna was activated. Relaxed back, pitiful eyes, finger movement, an expression that seemed to be in a little trouble. Her posture showcased the arrogance of dominating the information they didn't have. Her eyes twinkled, and the chairman clung to the seat next to Luna. What's different? Professor Luna Tilda? I don't know. Don't do that. Unfortunately, Luna was tight-lipped. Achievement. Symposium problem solved. Mana plus 200. Store currency plus 2. You want me to restore that? Yes. I held out a pendant to Jindalf. In it, there was a picture of a woman from the Luna family. The picture inside is important. The picture looks a bit old, but it shouldn't be difficult. Jindalf was a named wizard who had reached the apex of the Harmony series, which was why I decided to find him. However, there's something I want to ask you in return. Sure. I nodded, and at that moment, Jindalf cast a spell on the picture. It was regeneration on a level I couldn't even begin to fathom. Did you truly interpret 48 runes? Of course. I laughed quietly. Jindalf chuckled, stroking his beard and holding out the pendant. Here, take it. It had become nearly as good as new after his magic had finished restoring it. I opened it and looked at the picture inside. My eyebrows twitched. Jindalf asked, "Do you know that person?" "Yes, he was my assistant." "Assistant?" He committed suicide. I calmly said as I slipped it into my inner pocket. Jindalf scratched his cheek, pretending to be embarrassed. "I'll repay. Don't talk nonsense. Witnessing your work today is enough." Jindalf's personality remained the same as the setting. If I just listened to him, if I showed no sincerity, he wouldn't do me any favors in the future. I gave him a check. "It's not much, but please accept it." 50,000 elnis. It was a fair amount for his work. Jindalf glanced at it with a squint and took the check with a benevolent smile. "Why did you? I will use all of these to educate future students rather than on my own self-interest." I went out to the Medjyson's backyard. Crito, Uriel, Epheren, and Sylvia were there waiting at the promised place. First, I bowed to Crito. "Thank you for coming." "Haha, it's nothing." "Rather, it felt like you just opened my eyes. Your lectures are amazing. How did you come up with such an idea? That's why you're called the wizard who walks the royal road." "Oh, by the way," Crito covered his lips before continuing, "was there really only one original paper?" "Yes. There are no copies in this world anymore. Isn't that a waste? You've been immersed in it for a long time. I was thinking of destroying it from the beginning. This era isn't mature enough yet to use the rune language." "Mature?" "Runes spoken by the mouths of the wicked are sure to turn into a weapon that'll cause death and destruction. Hence, I deemed it better to get rid of it." Crito's jaw hung, his eyes filled with a sense of respect that I found burdensome. "Right, this is the book you asked for before." I pulled out a signed first edition Eucline, understanding the pure elements from my briefcase. "Are you sure you want to give me something this precious? It's not even out in the market yet." Crito's eyes twinkled as he looked at the book, his hand caressing its cover. "I am giving it because it is precious. At that moment, what's your name?" Epheren's voice sounded unusual. I looked around a little nervously. "He, you're cute. Your legs are so short." She was talking to a cat who simply stared at her without a word. The red-furred munchkin was very cute on the outside, but knowing its true nature, I couldn't help but pray for her well-being. "PFFFT. What? Why are you looking at me that way? Come on, Tilda, look at this, Tilda." Epheren took a foxtail and waved it in front of the cat, who then reached out to it. Its short paws moved along the grass that she shook. Although possessed, its body's innate instincts were still there. "Oh, that's the cat the imperial family entrusted to me." Crito laughed softly. I realized then why Sophian was keeping her silence. Even her brother still didn't know the emperor was inside the feline. "Epheren, Sylvia." I called out to them before things got complicated. "You two did a great job in the recent Baron of Ashes case." I pulled out a checkbook from my inner pocket and handed them one by one. "Consider this your reward. Regardless of price, buy what you want here in the Isle of Wizards' Wealth." Sylvia calmly nodded while Epheren looked like she was about to suffocate. Uriel, watching from behind them, was astonished. "Hey, what are you guys going to buy with it?" Rushing towards us, she pretended to ask such a question as she looked at the type of check I gave. Afterward, she whispered in my ear, "Damn it, that's a family check. Use a goddamn personal check." This place didn't accept personal checks. Meanwhile, Julie was looking around the Isle of Wizards' Wealth alone. The pathways here are complicated. More accurately, she got lost. She was fine until she came out of the Grand Hall. When she came to her senses, she was already somewhere in the town. The most basic path-finding tactic, just walk along the wall, did not work here. In some streets, the road itself rose to the sky, and in others it fell straight down to the ground. Julie, who was wandering around the area, accidentally found a shop. Brand doll shop. A smile appeared on her lips. There was even a doll shop on this floating island. Approaching it, she saw a lot of cute stuffed toys on the shelf. Eagle, rabbit, and, among them, she saw a small, unlike other pandas. This one with brown eyes had been a famous brand since Julie was a child. However, the owner soon opened the display case and took it out. It just got sold out. As Julie smiled bitterly out of sheer regret, ding, the store's door opened with a chime. Sylvia, a famous person that Julie knew well, came out, carrying the stuffed toy she was just looking at in her arms. "Hello, Sylvia?" Hi. Sylvia seemed disconcerted by their sudden encounter, but she soon realized that Julie's gaze was focused on her doll. Proudly, she declared, "It's a gift." "Who are you giving it to?" "No, I received it." She said something a little strange without realizing it, but it wasn't wrong in the first place. The definition of a gift was something that someone bought for another. She didn't pay for it, so it wasn't unreasonable to call it a gift. She didn't force him to buy it for her either. Sylvia proudly held the with her two hands. Julie smiled, expressing that she found it cute. "I'm jealous. Have you ever actually seen a panda?" "Yes, I saw a reel when I was a kid." "Wow, is that true? I'm so jealous." "Julie." A familiar voice flowed from behind the white-haired knight. Sylvia immediately determined who it was. Killeen. Finding Julie, he smiled at her. "You're here?" "Oh, yes." Though a little late, the moment Killeen's gaze fell on Sylvia, he introduced her to Julie. "This is Sylvia, a talented wizard capable of challenging the eternal rank." Sylvia looked at Killeen and Julie next to him alternately, the doll she just proudly showed off now hidden behind her. "I know. I was just talking to her." "I'll just go." Sylvia cut off Julie's words, bowed, then ran away. Julie watched her retreat into the distance. "By the way, Julie, did you understand my theorem?" She blushed. In fact, she couldn't understand the slightest bit of what he said. She only felt the flow of magic generated by the runes. Killeen smiled a little. "It's all right. I didn't even expect it. You came because of Zeit in the first place." Julie trembled at those words, but then shook her head. "No, the invitation was, of course, given by the head of the family, but it was my will to come here." "Is it?" "Yes, I'm serious." "I see." Alan, the assistant professor who was still following Killeen's footsteps, appeared. "Yes." "Tour her around the island. The opportunity for a knight to visit this place is rare." "Oh, yes, all right. Nice to meet you, Knight Julie." Alan smiled softly and bowed at Julie. "I'm going. If I stay, it will be uncomfortable for you and me." "Not necessarily. It has to be, doesn't it?" he asked. Julie, who understood what he meant, simply smiled bitterly and nodded. Killeen then walked away, leaving her behind. "Well, I should take you on the tourist course. Oh, we should head to the main island first." "Oh no then, by any chance, Knight Julie? Can you tell me how much time you have?" "Depending on your answer, our course will be." As Alan panicked, Julie simply said, "It's fine. I have a lot of time, so you don't have to think about it too much." Her voice was calming, serene. The sky was clear, allowing the huge sun to gaze down upon us from its throne, releasing rays of heat that turned the winds hot and humid. It was one of those days that met all the conditions that define the Empire's summer. After completing the symposium presentation, I returned to the university tower. The board of directors held a reception using the entirety of one of the upper floors. The professors congratulated me, and Adrian gave me the promised title. Head of Planning and Financial Coordination Office, Killeen. In fact, this tower was built with gold rather than magic. It devoted itself to the investments by the state, territories, corporations, and the mana stones it received every year. The only fuel that ran this tower was money, which was why it was the most capitalist place in the world. In such a place, I seized the undisputed power of finance. "Professor, this is the final lesson plan and a weekly guide to career counseling." Alan then appeared, handing me several documents. Classes had now ended, and the time for debutantes to think about their career paths had come. The tower offered career counseling to first-year to third-year wizards to give them a chance to ask for future advice from professors. In that sense, no one would apply to Killeen. "3 people even applied for your counseling," Alan said brightly. I didn't really like how he worded it. "Even?" "Oh, that? It's fine, I already know." I apologize. I didn't mean it that way. I know, you may go." Alan went outside looking back several times, and I took a letter out of the sponsored mailbox. It was Ephraim's letter this time again. "Hello, it's me, Ephraim, again. I got your response. It's going to be vacation soon." As I read it, I pulled out the pendant from the drawer. The Ephraim I knew was honest and wasn't good at hiding her feelings. It seemed she had been that way since she was a child, considering she was smiling brightly like always in the photo, but... Why? Ephraim's father wasn't smiling. He contrasted his child's joy sharply. His expression was just that terribly stiff. Wednesday noon. 77th floor of the tower. Sylvia stood in front of Professor de Killian's office. Knock, knock. Career counseling ran for a month before and after the final exam. Debutantes troubled by their future asked several professors for advice, but de Killian wasn't on the list of professors they could approach. According to the words written on the bulletin board, de Killian's direct words and actions were burdensome, or something along those lines. She thought only those who were weak would think like that. Knock, knock. Considering them pitiful, Sylvia knocked once more. Assistant Professor Allen opened the door. "Oh, Sylvia, wait here. Another consultation is going on right now. Is there someone inside?" "Yes, but it will be over soon." Sylvia sat still and waited as Allen tapped this new typewriter. Tack, ta, tack, tack. His typing speed was fairly slow. After waiting for about 10 minutes, the door to the counseling room opened. She raised her head and glared at the wizard. Arrogant Ephraim. Naturally, she was the first to come to her mind. Sylvia. But Drent, the man burned at the stake by de Killian due to his thesis, was the one that came out. "Oh, are you surprised? Me too, ha ha ha. Anyway, work hard." Drent left, scratching the back of his neck as if embarrassed. She didn't understand him at all, but she soon walked in. The head professor's counseling room was spacious and luxurious. No, the atmosphere of a certain person had colored the space with dignity. She walked over and sat down in front of him. De Killian, sitting on the counselor's seat, spoke indifferently. "This is surprising, Sylvia. I didn't think you'd look for a career counselor." "Yes," she nodded. "I am." It was awkward to call it consultation. Her career path after passing the Solda promotion test was already half determined. "Okay, what are your concerns?" Sylvia remembered what Ephraim told de Killian. "I'll be proposing to be under your supervision. In doing so, I'll reveal what happened and the reason why my father committed suicide. He wouldn't want an arrogant and dumb wizard like her. Rather, he probably lamented for having to take that stupid wizard in. Hence, Sylvia decided to take a step forward. "Should I apply under your supervision?" she asked. She wanted to hear de Killian's definitive answer directly from him. She wiggled her fingers on her knees, puffing up her cheeks. He stared at her silently, wearing a surprised expression, which was unusual. Was he impressed? In fact, it was natural. Any professor would welcome Sylvia if she applied under them. The same went for Professor de Killian. She didn't have to worry about his response since, naturally, it would be in the form of affirmation. Good thoughts flooded Sylvia's head, but it's not a good choice. De Killian shook his head. Sylvia momentarily failed to comprehend his actions. Since when did shaking your head become a yes and nodding become a no? Did the universal body language change beyond my awareness? You are a talent that shouldn't be under anyone. She was taken aback by his words. Without realizing it, she brought her up. What about Ephraim? Ephraim is worth raising, and she's the daughter of my old assistant. Moreover, compared to you, she lacks a lot. Sylvia stared blankly at de Killian, her red, swollen cheeks shrinking. You have the qualities of a future archmage, so you should go to the Isle of Wizards' Wealth instead. In a year or two, your skills will fully bloom, and you'll still have plenty of time to challenge the archmage trials. He was being honest. Professor de Killian was speaking with sincerity, even clearly praising her. But why did she feel this way? Why did she keep feeling like a sharp needle was stabbing her heart? Even if you apply, I won't take it. That was the decisive blow. Sylvia bowed like a withered sprout. For a long time, she didn't say anything. She just stayed still. It confused de Killian, but for her, it was a compliment she gave while suppressing the jealousy and twisted feelings that soared from her personality. Sylvia, raise your head. Sylvia didn't do as instructed. Her actions were unusual. A small light twinkled under her closed eyelids. No way. That couldn't be tears.